Hey guys, tonight we wander through a palace, drowning in moonlight, its corridors echoing with centuries of half-remembered debts. You glide past archways where tapestries shiver like trapped ghosts, silk threads whispering tales. Even the moths have forgotten that ledger in your hands. Oh, it's heavier than it looks. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive the next hour without yawning. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your nearest streetlight's color right now. Let's map where insomnia thrives globally. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your slippers whisper across marble colder, then a tax collector's smile. Moonlight licks the ledger's spine as you pry it open, a groan of leather that startles a spider off its cobweb hammock. Ever notice how old ink smells like regret and burnt almonds? Medieval stewards used charcoal mixed with ox gall recipe straight from a 14th century accounting manual. The numbers swim, a galaxy of debts, unpaid, and tributes swallowed by war. 23 barrels of saffron, 47 bolts of Damascus, silk 19 elephants, gifted by an Indian prince who definitely wanted your king dead. A draft sneaks in, candle flames bend sideways like courtiers, avoiding eye contact. You catch a whiff of lavender dust. Funny thing, Roman accountants swore urine brightened faded ink. Bet their scrolls reeked of desperation and pickled herring. Historians still argue whether midnight inventories were practical or just royal theater. That stain on page 94 could be wine, could be a scribe's final rebellion. Your nail traces a column, numbers melting into constellations. 72 becomes the Big Dipper. 38 morphs into Orion's belt. Ever counted stars instead of sheep? Dangerous game. You'll wake up reciting pi to the 15th digit. The quill waits, its nib sharp as a diplomat's insult. Dipping it feels like betraying a secret. Ink silver bleeds into vellum, 13, 14, 15, each stroke tighter than a corset laced with guilt. Someone once hid a love note between these pages. See the faded heart near the margin. Crumbled wax still seals its confession, a steward's ache pressed into grain. You touch the ghost kiss. Bad move. Now it's your fingerprint smudging their century-old might have been. Shadows thicken. The moon retreats, a coward dodging responsibility. Lean closer. That's not dust on your collar. It's the ashes of a ledger burned in 1632 for arithmetical heresy. A rat skitters behind the wainscoting. You freeze. The ledger lies. Local records claim this wing's rodent-free since the great cat purge of 1789. Sure, and I'm the queen of gilded lies. Your breath fogs a line detailing grain shortages. The fog reeks of sour ale and poor decisions. One emerald paperweight glints. Grab it. Cold seeps into your palm. A gem stolen from a Mughal emperor's turban or liberated, depending on the footnote. Floorboards creak a requiem 3 steps ahead. You pause, listened to a podcast once about resonance, how old wood remembers every footfall. This hallway's screaming. Turn left. No, right. The floor disagrees. A portrait glares, some ancestor judging your ink-stained cuffs. His ruff looks starchier than your resolve. Relax, buddy, you mutter. Your nose is literally peeling. The next page sticks. You pry it loose. A dried poppy petal flutters down. Opium shipments 18 casks of payment, unresolved. Someone's scrawled silence is golden beneath. Sound advice, wonder if they choked on it. You tally the dead gold leaf flaking under your thumb. 59 names. 60. 61. A drop of wax blooms, sudden and red as an executioner's wink. Dawn's first blade slices through a stained glass saint. You squint, the ledger snaps shut, a sound like bones resetting. Your reflection warps in a gilded mirror. For a heartbeat, it wears a crown. Blink. Gone. Maybe the spiders laced their webs with hallucinogens. Wouldn't put it past them. The clock tower wheezes 4:30. Hour of bakers and beggars. You pocket the poppy petal. Souvenir or evidence? Let posterity decide. Morning birds mock your retreat. The hallway stretches longer now. Your shadow leads the way. Ink-stained and twice as tired. One final glance back. The ledger sleeps, its secrets folded into stormlight, and maybe, always maybe, your slippers whisper across cold tiles, damp, seeping through worn soles. Moonlight bleeds through dome glass, dust, motes swirling above like trapped stars. The globes huddle under frayed velvet, centuries, crouching in mothball-scented dark. You peel back the shrouds, a cough of age rising as fabric sighs. Fingertips graze a sphere's cracked varnish, the feel of fossilized turtle shells. Oceans once cobalt bleed to ashen gray, continents sagging under invisible weight. Spin it counterclockwise. The axis squeaks like a mousetrap spring. Cartographers swore the Earth's waste measured 24,000 miles, missed by just under 200. Their ropes and quadrants lie rusted now, but the error endures in glossy textbooks. One landmass crumbles at your touch, ochre paint flaking like dried blood. Historians still argue whether the Sahara hid a lake vast enough to sail, or if Ibn Battuta's tales of phantom oases were just mirage-laced lies. You trace the Nile's jagged path, its delta choked with inked-in serpents. Turns out ancient mapmakers preferred decorative monsters over accuracy, safety in mythical sea beasts. A smaller globe catches the leaning moonlight, its meridians etched into hammered silver. Records claim a sultan commissioned it during the siege of Baghdad, demanded jeweled elephants stamping the poles. Foundry smoke allegedly strangled 3 craftsmen, their lungs filled with molten ambition. You squint at the prime meridian, cut through a tiny, tarnished Mecca. You heft another sphere, its base cracks, revealing hollow echoes, 19th century hoax, or not. The phantom atlas inside whispers when the moon wanes. Tonight it murmurs of Antalya, an Atlantis knockoff scribbled west of Portugal. Scholars dismissed it as sailors' tall tales, till Columbus used its myths to sweet-talk Ferdinand. The weight shifts, your grip tightens. The Pacific tilts, your thumbnail snags on the date line's ridge. Magellan's surviving crew lost a day, circling the globe, returned to find their saints' feast calendar askew. Imagine explaining jet lag to a priest in 1522. No espresso, just existential dread. Below your palm, Krakatoa's inkblot eruption still stains the Sunda Strait. If only maps could scream. 3 globes huddle together, their topographic bumps forming a fractured cradle. The tilt of Earth's axis shifts by inches each century, wobbling like a drunk beggar. You steady them, palms pressed to longitudes, 23.5 degrees, the numbers memorized, but the reasons slippery. Blame a cosmic fender bender, a planet-sized collision 4 billion years back. Your pinky brushes a mountain range, the Urals, or what's left of them. Dust puffs up as you lift a celestial globe, constellations pickled in tarnished brass. Orion's belt sags, one star dimmed by tarnish or tragedy. In Damascus, astronomers mapped eclipses using this very pivot. Or so the exhibit plaque lied. A faded note flutters from the equatorial ring, orders to scrubs, Zeus's inappropriate drapery. Censorship never takes vacations. The driest laugh escapes you. It's the kind of humor mummies might appreciate. You pivot toward a pocket globe, no bigger than an orange, its oceans frozen mid-tempest. A label claims it sailed with Captain Cook, 3rd voyage, the one before the spears. The auction house swore it's genuine. Never mind the Walmart barcode under the stand. Your breath fogs the Indian Ocean, condensation pooling where Ceylon should be. 17th century Dutch traders used sugar syrup to glue parchment. Ants ate half of Java. Somewhere in Amsterdam, a magnate's ghost still curses the 6-legged cartographers. You scratch a fleck of guilt, it flakes off like fool's gold. The last globe refuses to spin, its axis fused by time or tantrum. Peering close, you spot minuscule ships, forever circling the Cape of Good Hope, Dutch East India Company logos etched on sails thinner than cobwebs. One vessel's named the Haunting, fitting, since the real one sank in 1617. Museum interns must have missed that detail during the restoration. Dawn licks the dome's edge, amethyst light warping the equator's line. You redrape the spheres, their secrets buttoned up for another decade. The velvet slips, your palm catches a brass placard. Here be dragons, it proclaims, in Comic Sans. Every generation gets the myth-making it deserves. Your shadow stretches toward a bureau swallowed by cobwebs, its cracked veneer shimmering in flicker light. The top drawer groans, a chorus of protesting wood. Inside, envelopes slump like drunk guests at a tombstone unveiling. The first seal snaps, red wax brittle as dried blood. A moth flutters from the crease, its wings dusting the salutation. Dearest Cecilia, ink bleeds through folds in fungal capillaries. 17th century lovers used quills dipped in walnut dye, stubborn against time's spit. This one reeks of desperation, or maybe that's the attic mildew. You unfold the page, a dead leaf's crackle. The post rider misses your scent on his satchel. It begins, each word nibbled by silverfish scholars. Historians still argue whether Marie Antoinette's infamous "let them eat brioche" was satire or aristocratic tone deafness. Your nail traces a wine stain haloed around forgiveness, the paper dissolving like sugar cube confessional. A smaller envelope hides beneath, its seal the color of used chewing gum. Victorian forgers favored pig bladder glue, left a sour tang detectable after 2 centuries. Inside, a lock of hair, mouse nibbled and tied with spider silk. The note claims it's Lord Byron's, procured during a Venetian fever dream. Auction houses would pay dearly, if not for the egg sac nestled in the curls. You lift a tri-cornered letter, edges nod into lace. Burn holes scar the parchment, evidence of a too enthusiastic candle. To my dearest rival in Alexandria, the handwriting spikes like barbed wire. Turns out Cleopatra's famed perfume wasn't myrrh-based. Roman gossip columns swore it contained crushed rose beetles. Your thumb smudges an Egyptian cartouche, symbols melting into Rorschach blots. A blue envelope crumbles like shortbread, revealing sheet music etched by a tremulous hand. Mozart's lesser-known sister, Nero, composed this, a lullaby for a nephew she never met. The bass clef morphs into a doodled crocodile. Margin notes complain about Vienna's overpriced apricot strudel. You hum the melody. It curdles in your throat like spoiled cream. Beneath a stack of unpaid tax notices, a child's drawing surfaces. Stick figures dance around a bonfire, their faces smudged by grubby fingerprints. Preschool Picasso or medieval peasants doodle. Experts still debate the 1523 crayon chronicle found in a Castilian attic. The caption reads, "Papa comes home Tuesday," the paper singed where Tuesday should be. A perfumed letter unfolds with a sigh, scented with jasmine and existential dread. The Paris winter freezes my ink, and my affection writes a banker's wife to her fencing instructor. 19th century divorce petitions lacked flair, so adulterers got creative with metaphors. Your candle gutters, tallow smoke curtaining the steamiest paragraphs. You unroll a papyrus scroll, its hieroglyphs rowdy as a tavern brawl. Pharaoh's hired scribes to ghostwrite curses. This one threatens a grain accountant with scorpions in your sandals and ledgers. Modern bosses could never. A dried lotus petal drifts out, still prisoner to a breakup from 1348 BCE. The last envelope gleams too brightly, its gold leaf screaming modern reproduction. Inside, a WWII mail, words microprinted for wartime efficiency, a soldier's ink-smudged plea. Tell Martha I'll fix the porch swing by August. The censor's black bars swallow half the sentence, leaving porch swing dangling like a loose tooth. Dawn licks the bureau's edge, candle pooling into a wax puddle Rorschach. You blow out the flame, its death rattle smells of forgotten birthdays. The drawer shrieks shut, sealing apologies and grocery lists under a skin of dust. Somewhere, a museum intern's flashlight sweeps empty cases, but you're already turning toward the next room. Moonlight silvers a ring of iron, each key jagged as a snapped wishbone. Your fingers graze frost-cold teeth, 19th-century-old wards hiding under dust. Medieval locksmiths forged these with deliberate imperfections, each defect a failsafe against copycats. Yet here they dangle, orphans, without locks to tame them. The smallest bites your thumb, a Tudor era warden no bigger than a paperclip. Historians still argue whether Roman underfloor heating inspired Elizabethan keyhole designs. Architects love a good plagiarism scandal. You pocket it anyway, great for prying open modern existential crises. Next, a bronze monstrosity studded with emeralds. Turns out Cleopatra's palace guards carried gemmed keys as status symbols, security through sparkle. This one's center stone winks, green as envy or absinthe. 18th century matchmakers swore jade could unlock hearts, judging by divorce rates. Maybe stick to locks. A rusted skeleton key hums when you lift it, vibrations thrumming through your wrist. 19th century asylum keepers filed notches into their keys, each groove marking a cured patient. This one sports 37. Wind whistles through its hollow shaft, a ghostly C-sharp dangling in the air. You pause at a key shaped like a guillotine blade. French revolutionaries melted down palace keys, post-Bastille, turning them into Liberty Bells and bad decisions. This relic escaped the furnace, its edge still sharp enough to slice through royalist delusions. 3 filigree keys fused together, victims of a disastrous 1920s cleaning experiment involving beeswax and ambition. Conservationists weep into their pH buffers just thinking about it. The tangle resembles modern love, complicated, oxidized, likely to snag your sweater. Your lantern glints off a pewter key, stamped with twin serpents. Aztec priests used these to unlock celestial events, mainly eclipse panic and human sacrifice RSVPs. The snake's eyes glow under the light, obsidian pupils tracking your breath. A child's copper key hangs apart its bow, molded into a grinning cat. Victorian servants hid these for floorboard stashes. Gin, love letters, evidence. The feline's grin widens as you turn it, Cheshire logic in a 6-ounce package. The grand finale, a foot-long iron patriarch crusted in barnacles, salvaged from a sunken Spanish galleon's strongroom, wrongly labeled mermaid femur for 70 years. Salt-corroded wards whisper of doubloons and dysentery. Treasure hunts always end in 3 things. Dawn sneaks through cracked shutters. The keys, Shadows stipple the wall like braille. You rub thumbprints across centuries of metallurgy, sweat, and oxidation, swapping origin stories. Somewhere a door sighs open, or maybe that's your knees protesting the cold stone floor. Your shadow spills across the courtyard, a stain seeping through shattered timepieces. Cracked marble sundials jut upwards, broken teeth in a stone jaw. Nero's golden house once boasted a sundial taller than 3 charioteers, Romans' new drama, and bad fiscal policy. You kneel beside a fractured gnomon, its bronze edge jagged as a lie. 3 numerals cling to the dial's face, IV, IX, XII, like survivors of a numeral purge. Historians still argue whether medieval monks skewed sundial readings to shorten vespers, lazy clerics, or divine rebranding. You trace the XII, noon ossified, into a permanent scream. A spider scuttles over the central crack, silver thread stitching granite split by a lightning strike. Tang dynasty horologists believed arachnids repaired cosmic balance, their webs netting runaway minutes. This one's handiwork trembles as you exhale, an 8-legged horologist cursing your clumsy mortal breath. Your thumb finds a depression where VIII should lord over dawn. Victorian conspiracy. Nuts swore missing sundial hours, proved phantom time, centuries, fabricated by Byzantine bureaucrats. Makes you side-eye your wristwatch. Are we all just payroll errors in monkish ledgers? Moss creeps across a sundial's motto, Hora fugit eaten by Hora fungus. Renaissance gardeners planted time around chronometers, herbal attempt to slow the clock. These sprouts opted for rebellion, lichen as temporal anarchist. You snap off a flake, it crumbles into green confetti. One dial tilts southwest. Pompeii's timekeepers still angle toward Vesuvius' last eruption. Archaeologists found a sundial there frozen at 7 p.m. baked in doom o'clock. This one's bronze face blisters under your lantern, blistered like Vesuvius tourists without SPF. A marble fragment balances on the edge, noon line, bisecting a carved lion's mane. Mughal emperors embedded gemstones in sundials, 3 p.m. sparking with emeralds, 9 a.m. weeping sapphires. This beast's ruby eye went tomb raiding centuries ago, judging by the pigeon crap in the socket. You lift a palm-sized disc, child's sundial etched with dwarfish numerals. Edwardian schoolgirls wore these as pendants, proto-Fitbit, for punctual debutantes. The chain snaps, noon skitters into the gravel like a lost button. At the courtyard's heart lies the queen, a 3-tiered celestial clock hybrid. Aztec calendar meets Baroque frippery, IKEA manual gone horologically feral. Its moon phase dial stopped on a waning crescent, the exact shape of your last hangover. Damp seeps through your knees as you pivot, death to pleated trousers. Dawn finger paints the scene pink smudges over broken angles. Your shadow stretches across 6 centuries of failed chronometry, a many-jointed god of maybe tomorrow. Somewhere a bell tolls, the note warped by distance or dented metal. You count the strikes. It stops at 7. Or was it 8? The 7th toll pulls you toward stone steps worn concave by thirsty feet, centuries of servants fetching Merlot for bad decisions. Your lantern reveals a door swollen shut, its oak warped into a permanent wine-stained pout. Iron handle colder than a banker's heart. You lean, wood groans open, air rushes out like breath from a long-sealed tomb. Vinegar punches your sinuses. 18 generations of Merlot gone to acidic spite. Roman emperors poisoned themselves slowly, lead-lined amphory sweetening wine while rotting their brains. This cellar outdoes them, every bottle a silent coup against pleasure. Corks crumble at your approach, powdery surrender, audible as a librarian's shush. Bottles slump in their niches, drunken nobles awaiting last rites. One topples, you catch it mid-flop. The label's florid cursive claims Château de Regret, 1703. Tastes like someone aged a lawsuit in oak. Damp cobwebs cling to your face. Ghostly sommeliers insisting you try the 79 disappointment. Historians still argue whether Hattus's Hittites invented wine racks or just plagiarized drunk ants. You wipe muck from a bottle's shoulders. Its glass blooms with bubbles from a second fermentation. Tudor con men sold this as sparkling novelty, dropping marble chips in vinegar to mimic fizz. A cabinet of gilt-stoppered decanters winks. Liquid inside has congealed to tar. Marie Antoinette's perfumer once infused wine with orange zest and poor life choices. You uncork a flask, the pop echoes like a tiny revolution. The scent, regret, with top notes of dead yeast. Stone shelves sag, each rack's angle calculated to keep sediment settled or to hide body disposal, hard to say. Your boot taps a cask banded in rust. It sighs out a red-brown tear. 1846, Bordeaux reduced to Marxist critique of capitalism. All seething tannins and dashed hopes. Mold creeps across a bottle's epitaph, vinum bonum. Deus donum, now vinum bumrum. Deus dormium. Beneath, hieroglyphic mildew spells fresher insults. Napoleon's troops drank Egypt dry, shooting the Nile into their canteens like energy drinks. You half expect a mummy's curse between these barrels, stolen vintages. Demand payment in curses or corkscrews. A forked metal tool glints in silt. Sommelier's scruple abandoned mid-heist. 18th century waiters dueled with these wine keys as dueling pistols over spilled claret. You pocket it better than garlic at repelling pretentious dinner guests. Twin amphory flank an arched niche, their bellies wide as bankrupt counts. Ostia Antiqua's dockworkers guzzled fermented fish gut wine from these Roman Four Loko. Your thumb finds a chip, edge sharp enough to slice through delusions of grandeur. Near the back wall, bottles wear fur coats, mold grown thick as tribble pelts. One explodes at your touch, shards sink into sawdust, while vinegar pools like betrayal. Experts think Elizabethan vintners added ground pearls for clarity. Turns out mold prefers its minerals porous. A ledger lies splayed on a ton, water-stained entries bleeding into Rorschach blots. 10 barrels Momsey, slightly less cursed than the 22 batch. You flick a page. It disintegrates, history rewritten as confetti. Footsteps squelch above, draftsmen ants marching towards spilled sacraments. Their antennae twitch at the 71 port, even bugs know to avoid that vintage. The lantern gutters, shadows sway like soused aristocrats. Your sleeve catches a cork necklace dangling from a hook. 17th century sobriety test. Fail, and they'd make you govern the colonies. The string snaps, brown beads roll into darkness, tiny heads of state escaping office. Against the far wall, a single intact bottle, wrapped in papyrus, wax stamped with Anubis's jackal grin. Carbon dating's too kind for this relic. It hums with predynastic spite. You blow dust off the seal. It tastes like exodus and bad investment. Somewhere above, the bell chimes again, or maybe your ears ring from the fumes. You count the strikes. It stops at 9. Or was it wine? You claw through vinegary air, backtracking past barrels that hiss like jilted lovers. The stairwell swallows your lantern's glow, stone steps slick, with a century of cellar breath. A draft slithers down your collar, sharp with attic dust and the metallic tang of quicksilver. 3 corridors fork ahead. You choose the one where moth-eaten linen drapes shiver in no visible breeze. Something winks through frayed cloth, a slice of polished silver, older than the Crusades. Venetian glassblowers smuggled mirror secrets under penalty of death. Their 15th century monopoly shattered by a disgruntled apprentice and a well-bribed gondolier. Your nail catches the drapery's hem, fabric cascades like a widow's veil abandoning post. Glass erupts, a sheet so flawless it steals your breath. Your reflection appears, delayed. Blink, you see yesterday's face. Blink again, wrinkles deepen like cracks in drying clay. Historians still argue whether Renaissance mirrors used mercury or tin. Right now, you'd swear it's spite. Breath mists the surface. When it clears, the eyes staring back aren't yours, pupils wide as eclipse shadows, crow's feet etched by sharper years. Medici wives hid poison rings behind similar glass, their beauty a weapon and wound. You lean closer, the mirror exhales. Frost flowers bloom across your stolen visage. 7 shrouded mirrors line the wall, each sheeted like corpses after a Sunday sermon. You tug the next cover. Linen disintegrates. Palace dust rains down as the glass coughs up a bedchamber. 4-poster canopy torn, gown laid out, sleeves pinned wide like a butchered swan. Versailles, lost fashions molder here, silk moths staging a proletariat revolt. The 3rd mirror stays veiled. Touch it, your palm comes away sticky with resin. Ship captains once sealed portholes this way before storms. Superstition claiming mirrors invited lightning. Faint breathing thrums against the cloth. Not yours, not steady. You step back. All reflections snap to attention. A battalion of not used clicking imaginary heels. One smirks. Another checks a phantom pocket watch. A third mouths wrong, wrong, wrong until you grind teeth loud enough to drown it out. Wipe the fog, they mimic you. Mostly. Wipe again, they don't. Fingers brush a frame's rosette carving. Wood splinters into your thumb. 18th century gilding flakes off, revealing Egyptian cedar beneath. Napoleon looted these during the Cairo campaign, along with enough sarcophagi to house his entire inferiority complex. The glass ripples your warped double, offers a military salute. Middle finger extended. A draft yanks another cover sideways. Linen catches on a nail mid-fall. The revealed pane shows a ballroom frozen mid-waltz, specters gliding through quadrilles. Only Architectural Digest remembers. One ghost pauses her pannier skirt swishing as she presses a skeletal hand to the glass. You've read about haunted mirrors, usually gas leaks or mold toxins. Usually, your lantern gutters, flame shrinking to a blue pearl. Reflections vanish, or maybe retreat. When light swells again, something new swims beneath the glass. Swirling pigments, oil seeping from the backing, ultramarine blues, crushed lapis, lazuli worth more than bishops. Renaissance craftsmen, sometimes painted behind mirrors, hidden images sweating through over decades. This one bleeds a face, wide-brimmed hat, smirk worthy of a heretic. Brunelleschi, Caravaggio's angry cousin, that guy who invented insomnia. You press an ear to the cool surface, muffled chatter leaks through. Italian, no, Latin slurred by wine. A workshop argument about who stole the last brush. Possible hallucination. Highly likely. Definitely. The largest mirror leans against a divan, its sheet secured with a cameo brooch. Unclasp it, opal eyes blink from the pendant. Mary, Queen of Scots, owned this pin, lost the week before her beheading. The cloth slithers down, a rectangle taller than your reach. Glass stretches toward the ceiling, an archivist's guillotine. Your reflection steps forward. You don't. It tilts its head, appraising a bug under crystal. Necklace glints your necklace. Same chip on the pendant's left horn. It mouths words, no sound. Lip reads as Vespertilio. Latin for bat. Helpful. You bare teeth. It returns a grin stuffed with molars. 3 extra. Then it lifts a hand, presses palm to glass. The surface gives a mercury meniscus rippling toward your reality. Pull back. Its fingernails scrape, squeaking like slate pencils. Cold seeps through your soles, spreads up calves. St. Denis carried his head for miles. How heavy would your reflection weigh? The thing's grin widens. It knows you're considering metaphors. Bad sign. Wool drapes smother the nearest torch. Darkness avalanches into the gallery. Silvered planes erupt with afterimages. Your silhouette burned into glass like martyrs on toast. When you relight the lantern, 13 reflections nurse grudges, 12 blink, 1 winks. 1 pane remains shrouded, too small for a mirror, too square for art. Peel the cloth, smell oxidizes iron. A slate plate stares back daguerreotype ancestor. Early photographers claimed these stole souls, convenient excuse for bad lighting. Your face swims up from silver nitrate, sepia-toned and judgmental. Ancestor, future corpse, Tuesday's barista. Breath fogs the plate, condensation spells MENE, TEKEL, UPHAR cyan. Breakfast cereal, dead languages. You scrub it away, streaks resemble your mother's frown lines. In the farthest corner, a mirror leans face to wall. Plaster cracks where its edges dig in years of pressure, decades of avoidance. Spin it around, wood backing weeps sap. The glass, blank, not empty, pressed against the wall, it now mirrors. Nothing, no stone, no mortar, just infinite negative space where your reflection should queue up with complaints. Lean closer. Cold radiates deeper than cellars, older than wine. This is how Snow White's stepmother should check her vanity, avoiding truths, inviting voids. You snap upright, vertigo, sucker punches your balance. All mirrors sway in unison, pendulums, sinking to a silent count. Their surfaces now show identical scenes, a bedchamber you don't recognize. Canopied bed empty. Clock shattered, armoire ajar. Your throat tightens. Light flexes, shadows stretch, and in every glass, the armoire door creeps wider. Light snuffs out, the armoire's jaws snap shut in every glass. You pivot, wood groans. A new doorway exhales bergamot and vellum. Welcome to the library's gut, where sleep goes to suffocate. Shelves sag under leather-bound tumors, their spines cracked like dried riverbeds. Your sleeve grazes a volume, its title bleeding gold foil onto your cuff. De Re Metallica, Agricola's mining opus. First edition. Worth 3 castles in 1556. Now a moth, airbimb, paper rustle follows you, not pages turning. Not quite. Too slick. Too mucus. You freeze. A silverfish lifts its head from Cicero's to officii. Its antennae twitch, then dive back into chapter 3. Even parasites get ethics lectures here. Dust motes swarm your lantern, each speck a retired star. You swipe a folio, chain still bolted to the shelf. Medieval monks used to shackle books, thieves being fans of light reading. The parchment creaks open. A pressed bat wing greets you. Marginalia claims its St. Augustine's ear. Dubious. A lectern leans, its slope scarred by dagger nicks. Scholars dueled here, ink-stained egos settling debates through illustrated manuscripts. Historians still argue whether the Voynich manuscript's botanical drawings depict real plants or just a bored apothecary's ketamine trip. Your shadow climbs the stacks, stretching into a spindly giant. It ripples across incunabula, Gutenberg's grandchildren whimpering in their bindings. One shelf yawns, a codex tumbles. You catch it mid-air, Trethurian thesis from 1589. Sections nibbled into lacework. Termites are the ultimate critics. There's a sneeze building, the kind that wake mummies. You clamp it, sinuses quaking as eyes adjust to the gloom. not your eyes. Dozens glinting between books. Owls, too still, glass eyes, taxidermied dioramas watching from the rafters. A great horned specimen wobbles, century-old glue surrendering. You pass the forbidden section, chains replaced by spider silk. Their webs cradle grimoires, hexes pulsing beneath kid leather. One book binds its covers in human skin anthropodermic bibliology. Was all the rage for 17th century witch hunters. The epidermis still puckers, goosebumps immortalized. Footprints dent the dust ahead yours. Too small, barefoot, toenail scratches suggest panic or interpretive dance. They lead to a reading nook, chair upholstered in what was definitely a papal robe once. The seats warm, recent. A hearth's corpse chills the far wall, ashes sparkling with mica. A snort escapes your first real laugh since the vinegar cellar. The laugh bounces, ricochets off gazetteers, almanacs, psalters, and something laughs back. Dry, rasping. The Malleus Maleficarum vibrates its pages, fanning a reedy wheeze. Could be binding glue. Could be the book enjoying its own jokes. Daylight bleeds through a stained glass clear story, saints decapitated by leaded lines. The pane depicting Saint Jerome glows, his lion's mane a mosaic of 572 amber shards. You know this because Cardinal Borgia's glazier itemized each fragment, paid in indulgences and syphilis ointment. Up the spiral stairs, globes in iron gimbals. Spin one, the earth wobbles. Australia's missing. Cartographer got eaten by dingoes mid-project. A slipcase protrudes Tugget. Map of Constantinople unfurls, street names in Ottoman Turkish. Coffee rings mark each mosque, a crusader's bitter breakfast. In the lexicography aisle, a quill levitates over vellum. Dipping into thin air, it writes absquatulate in perfect Spencerian script. Ghost linguist, draft from the chimney. You mimic the motion, your finger comes away wet. Ink, saliva. The Oxford English Dictionary needs a spooky appendix. 3 ladders lean, only 2 touch shelves. The third ascends into shadows. You climb rungs grown. 5 steps up, wood transitions to bone. Femurs, tibiae, pelvis, rungs, a surgeon's idea of interior design. Your lantern gutters, revealing a hatch in the ceiling. Push it, sunlight stabs your retina. The ladder ends at a roof hatch your back in the mirror gallery. Time loops, architectural screw-up, brain melting. Below the library yawns, infinite and impossible. A single moth flutters up, its wings powdering your sleeve with Plato's Republic. You descend, ignoring the hatch's whispers. The floor shifts, tiles spell delta omicron upsilon in Koine Greek. Behold, classy, a trapdoor. Dank air wafts up stale incense and rat despair. You close it, tile letters rearrange. Omicron, letter 1F54. No, fair enough. A reading desk's blotter. Stains bloom into continents. One resembles your birthmark, down to the mole near Newfoundland. Coincidence. Hereditary cartography. You tear the corner, paper screams. The sound echoes from 6 aisles over. Someone's journal just had a heart attack. Slump into an armchair, horsehair stuffing pokes your thigh. The armrest conceals a flask, brandy, 1723. Smells like fire and regret. You sip, lips numb. Voltaire probably wrote Candide with this burning his esophagus. The room tilts, bookshelves curtsy. A bell tolls deep in the walls, but the hour rings blue. By the exit, a ledger lies open. Today's date, 11 September 1582. Missing days, thanks to the Gregorian shuffle. You initial next to Galileo's doodle, a telescope aimed at a nun's habit. The ink's still wet. Of course it is. Lantern oil's low flame shrinks to a sesame seed. Shadows mass, librarians of the damned, licking their paper cuts. You pocket the flask, alcohol being the best bookmark, and exit sideways. The door seals, wood grain reshapes into a finger pointing. Somewhere, every library's a treasure hunt. 0 maps, all claws. Air changes, mold spores to roses, illusion. The corridor ahead's paved with shattered hourglasses. Your reflection waits there, holding a book titled your obituary. Rough draft. It grins, pages rustling like a wasp's nest. The rose scent smothers you, a trickster's bouquet. Your obituary doppelganger dissolves into glass shards. They skitter toward twin doors banded with. Are those lute strings? You push through, gut rosin squeal scoring your nerves. A concert hall greets you, if concert halls were designed by drunk horologists. A harpsichord's lid yawns open, its quill plectra dangling like hangman nooses. Violins slouch on stands, strings sagging into bass clef frowns. The E string on a Stradivarius snores, or maybe that's actual snoring. Stradivari smuggled beetle-killed spruce into his varnish. Secret ingredient. Bacteria included. A cello case lies cracked, interior velvet, devoured by silverfish. They've left a condolence note in nibbled script. Apologies for the upholstery. Sincerely, Lepidoptera. You poke a viola. It groans the opening bars of Dies Irae, 2 on the nose. Wax candles weep stalactites onto brass candlesticks. 17th century musicians used to rub bacon grease on strings, believing pig fat attracted better resonance. The air smells of rancid lard and neglect. 1 candlewick sprouts mold, penicillium crescendo. Your heel grinds a lyre pin into the floorboards. It rolls, plink plink plinking down a warped staircase. Historians still argue whether ancient Greeks actually played lyres mid-battle, or if that's just Homeric fanfiction. At the stair's base, a clavichord snoozes beneath moth-eaten damask. A harp tilts gilt peeling like sunburnt skin. Its petals dangle from gut strings, a marionette's autopsy. You pluck a rusted C-sharp. The note gallops up the rafters, stirring a murder of crows nested in the pipe organ. They caw in diminished thirds. Sheet music carpets the floor, staves colonized by termite trails. You kneel, deciphering a mouse-nibbled sonata. The composer signed each page with a blood thumbprint. Carlo Gesualdo's lost manuscript. Doubtful. He preferred stabbing his wife to writing coda. A metronome ticks inside a glass bell jar, pendulum frozen at 3313 RPM. Whoops, wrong century. You lift the jar, sand spills out, forming a tiny desert of more questions. The metronome's arms scratch against glass, two skeletons waltzing in a snow globe, trumpet valves crusted green. Your breath would have cleared them in 1720. Today, they crumble like wedding cakes left in a cellar. A trombone slide hangs from the ceiling, dripping something viscous. You decline the invitation to taste test. Footlights flicker, gas jets hissing through corroded pipes. One sputters, illuminating a bassoon's shadow. It stretches into a hangman's gallows. A noose sways empty, except for 8 miniature nooses inside. Matryoshka executions. Baroque as hell. You trip over a timpani head, goatskin, drumming a funeral march for your dignity. The mallet's handle sprouts oyster mushrooms. Tap it. The thum vibrates your molars. Louis XIV's court musicians played timpani to simulate thunder. More reliable than meteorology. A music stand holds a scorched score, the rite of spring. The ink's still smoldering. 1913 audiences rioted during its premiere. Choreography offended their delicate sensibilities. You hum a bar, the floorboards sprout thistles. Art hurts. A glass harmonica glints on a pedestal, Ben Franklin's greatest hit. Rumor says early players went mad from lead poisoning and ghost frequencies. You rotate the spindle, damp fingers draw out a glassy wine. The chandelier shudders, crystal teardrops realign into a skeletal hand shape. 3 music boxes yawn open, each playing a different funeral dirge. The gears grind, interspersing notes with clicks that sound like Morse code. You catch the rhythm. No one's that fluent in 1820s telegraph. You pocket a tuning fork, its prongs bent into a wishbone shape. Strike it, the note hovers like a wet fingerprint on glass. A viola case rattles, its occupant impatient for resurrection. You're no Orpheus. The dead can keep their playlists. The conductor's podium leans, its rails scarred by knife slashes. Rival maestros dueled here, baton versus stiletto. A faded playbill underneath advertises Paganini's 1832 Paris show. Tickets required signed blood oaths. Critics swore he'd sold his soul for those trills. Jokes on them. He pawned his tibia instead. A theremin buzzes in the corner, antennae swaying like sea anemones. You wave a hand. It squeals the opening of Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star. The inventor's ghost probably haunts Radio Shacks nationwide. A sackbut, yes, sackbut, leers from an alcove, its slide rusted shut. Renaissance musicians smuggled love notes in their instruments' tubing. Unroll this one, a marriage proposal to someone named Hortense. She left a reply in lead point. Ask my father. Cold. The pipe organ's keys stick, ivory turned sepia with nicotine. Birds nest in the bass pipes. Their droppings score the walls. Abstract expressionism meets avian IBS. You depress a pedal, the entire building flatulates in B-flat minor. The crows applause with synchronized wing claps. A lute hangs by its own frayed strings, fretboard warped into a sneer. Tudor musicians coated strings in arsenic for brighter tones. This one's fuming quietly, a poisoner's retirement plan. You strum a discordant chord. The sound amputates a candle flame mid-sputter. A theremin's case creaks open, revealing sheet music written in braille. You trace the dots, fingertips translating them into a chill down your neck. The last measure loops endlessly, a glyph that resembles your initials. Coincidence needs to try harder. The exit beckons, a door shaped like a violin scroll. Its knobs missing, replaced by a viola peg jammed sideways. Twisted, the peg snaps. The door sighs, a breath smelling of resin and embalming fluid. Beyond, a corridor pulsates with the humid stench of rotting roses. Your socks are already damp. The corridor's rotting rose stench surrenders to lamp oil, a greasy warmth that clings to your nostrils. You enter a vault lined with shelves, bowing under obsidian figures, gods and beasts carved so sleek they seem poured rather than chiseled. Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror god, glares with hollow eyes, your reflection warping in his polished cheekbones. Historians still argue whether these carvings were prayer objects or ancient paperweights. The Aztec Empire traded obsidian blades, sharper than surgical steel. Conquistador accounts mention warriors shaving with them. You lift a jaguar warrior. Its edges bite your palm despite centuries of handling. Coolness seeps into your fingerprints. Some modern crystal healers insist holding obsidian figurines cures Wi-Fi headaches. You wait. The migraine persists. A missing spear tip mars a goddess's outstretched hand, the break smoother than the surrounding stone. Your thumb finds the edge, still sharp enough to draw blood if pressed. Across the room, a plinth holds 3 figures mid-dance, limbs interlaced like frozen flame, their bases bear glyphs worn to nubs by generations of thumbs. Dust motes swirl in lamplight, settling on a rabbit-eared deity's ears. Mesoamerican moon goddess, or a court jester forgotten by time. The largest figure dominates the back wall, a feathered serpent coiled around its own tail. Quetzalcoatl's scales glitter with embedded pyrite flecks. Lean closer. The stone exhales a metallic tang, like licking a battery. Spanish priests burned thousands of these idols in autodafes. This one survived by hiding in plain sight, masquerading as a doorstop in a Veracruz rectory for 2 centuries. You reach for a palm-sized monkey god, its surface sticky with old incense resin. Sticky fingers, sticky past. Your grip falters, it slips, but the figure rights itself mid-fall. Magnets in the base, or divine intervention. Either way, your heartbeat outpaces the flickering lamp. A glass cabinet displays shards labeled ritual purpose, unconfirmed. One triangular fragment mirrors your face If your face were a puzzle, missing half its pieces, archaeologists found similar debris in Tenochtitlan's drains. Were they offerings or trash? The void between sacred and disposable feels thinner here. Your elbow brushes a shelf, figurines tremble, but hold formation. Their shadows writhe on the wall, a pantomime of temple rites. A bat god's silhouette grows fangs. You step back, the dance stills. The lamp sputters. Beneath the serpent's coils lies a drawer stuffed with linen wraps, once vibrant red, now the color of dried blood. Unfold one stitched, repairs crawl across the fabric like centipede legs. A slip of vellum hides in the folds, third shipment intercepted. Burn the rest. The ink blooms where someone wept on the words. You pocket a thumbnail-sized owl carving. It's obsidian, veined with golden tracings. Hours later, you'll find it warm in your pocket, though the vault stays tomb chilly. For now, it's just a pretty rock. A rat scuttles behind the shelves, its nails clicking like a deathwatch beetle. You freeze. The Aztec underworld had a river of blood guarded by a yellow dog. This rat's tail flicks, mud brown, not golden. Small mercies. A porcelain bowl sits beneath a crack in the ceiling, collecting obsidian's tears. Or just rainwater. The liquid shines iridescent, oil-slick prism in a vessel meant for sacrificial blood. Dipping a finger feels inevitable. The droplet clinging to your skin evaporates before it falls. As you turn to leave, lamp glow catches a figure you missed, a child's hand emerging from the serpent's jaw. The stone palm cradles a real human molar. Mummified gum tissue clings to the roots. Scholars debate whether it's a relic or a Victorian tourist's morbid prank. Either way, the tooth winks at you, enamel gleaming against volcanic glass. Your shadow stretches toward the exit, elongated hands brushing the feathered serpent's fangs. For a breath, the teeth seem to part. Then the lamp dies. You exit backward, the dark pooling where your footsteps retreat. You stumble into air thick with the ghost of crushed mint, its sharpness dulled by centuries of neglect. Glass panes, web-cracked overhead, filter dawn into fractured gold, each beam spotlighting a different corpse. Roses mummify in their own thorns, petals curled like skeletal hands, clutching nothing. Tudor gardeners once buried fish heads beneath these roots for fertilizer. An old trick to force blooms, fit for a king. The stench must been memorable. A watering can rusts near your boot, its spout choked by calcified dirt. You kick it. The metal groans, orange flakes snowing onto tiles ruptured by desperate roots. Those serpentine cracks seem to pulse. Or maybe that's your headache returning. Someone glued a label to the can's handle. For nightshade only, do not mix. Sage advice for dating apps too. You brush a shriveled orchid, it crumbles into dust that glows faintly green. Radium-based pesticide, maybe. Edwardian plant enthusiasts loved radioactive tonics to revive sickly ferns. The powder coats your sleeve, no tingling, no superpowers. just disappointment. A bare trellis claws at the ceiling, its wooden fingers gripping empty air. Vines lie coiled beneath it, desiccated springs waiting for attention that never comes. Victorian plant, hunters died for specimens less pathetic. One guy got eaten by a tiger in Sumatra, chasing a rare pitcher plant. His last journal entry, worth it. Your elbow knocks a clay pot. It shatters into pieces, resembling continental plates. Soil spills out gray and lifeless, except for a single earthworm. It writhes, blind head questing. You'd cheer for it, if not for the teeth. Wait, teeth. The creature whips toward your shadow, its maw a circular saw of translucent needles. You stomp. It explodes into keratin confetti. Glass jars line a shelf, swimming with pickled blooms. A peony floats fetal, its label peels upward. Bred for Lady Parthenope, 1892, never deflowered. Clever girl. The brine winks opalescent, you swear it's pulsing. Best not to unseal Victorian jellies. A workbench sags under herbarium pages, pressed flora sewn to parchment with human hair. Each strand glints auburn in the dusty light. Romantic, probably syphilitic. The ink captions blur deuterostramonium, helps somnambulism and unwanted pregnancies. Historians still argue whether these were medical records or witches' shopping lists. Beneath the pages, a ledger open to a charcoal sketch. Your breath catches. Not a plant, a womb. Roots sprout where the fallopian tubes should be. Margins scrawl. Third crop failure. We must graft the queen's stalk. You flip the page. It's glued shut with something that stains your thumb purple. 3 terracotta pots cluster in a corner, each sealed with wax. The first growls when touched. The second leaks brackish fluid. The third, you hesitate, radiates warmth. A hairline crack splits its surface. Something inside shifts, a wet click, like a tongue detaching from palate. Nope. Dawn stretches shadows across a stone sink, its basin crusted with algal hieroglyphs. Turn the faucet. Rust screams through pipes, a sound felt in the teeth. The water arrives black and reeking of licorice. A drowned key gleams in the sludge. You leave it. Above the door, a wilted mistletoe bouquet dangles from a rafter. The berries resemble eyeballs drained of vitreous humor. You duck. Brittle stems rain down, one catches in your collar. It tickles like spider legs until you bat it away. Your boot crunches through a skeletal leaf. The fracture echoes. The whole greenhouse inhales. Rows of dead plants quiver seed pods rattling like maracas. A cactus leans, its spines etching SOS into the glass. Too late, friend. Against the far wall, a frangipani tree claws through the roof. Its branches splinter wood and leaded panes. Among the wreckage, a single bud swells waxy and milk pale. You lean in. The petals part a millimeter, revealing filaments that vibrate in ultrasonic frequencies. Your fillings ache. Legend claims these trees only bloom where true love died. This one's 50 feet up and smelling of rotting gardenias. Close enough. You retreat, heel grinding a seed into the tiles. It pops. Green liquid oozes. Something in the walls scratches towards the sound. Time to go. The door winds on hinges, resisting. You shoulder through, dawn's chill kissing the sweat on your neck. Behind you, glass shatters. An eel-like root whips past your ankle, retracting fast. You don't look back. Looking back never helps. You push open a door that groans like a butler with a secret, its hinges gummed up by a century of grime. The air feels different here, stale, yet crackling with the phantom scratch of quills. Light slants through warped shutters, blades cutting dust into spirals. Rows of scribes' desks march toward a cracked stained glass window. Saint Jerome and his lion, now a kaleidoscope of lead shards. Each workstation holds relics of controlled panic. Inkwells petrified into tar-black geodes, quills splayed like broken fingers. One desk tilts, 3 legs gnawed smooth by woodworm. An open ledger reveals a list of names half-eaten by silverfish, colonial tax records, or death warrants. Same difference, really. Your sleeve brushes a stack of parchment. It exhales a cough of powdered vermilion. Medieval monks swore by garlic to keep vellum from molding. Didn't work. This place reeks of failure and old bindings. A dried ink blot spreads across the ceiling, an archipelago where ambition drowned. You pick up a quill. Its nib snaps at the lightest touch. Iron gall ink does that. Historians still argue whether scribes' tremors came from malnutrition, mercury poisoning, or sheer existential dread. At the desk's edge, a clay cup holds withered berries. Scholars in Alexandria used crushed mulberries to proofread, staining errors crimson. This batch looks like mouse turds dipped in resentment. A drawer sticks. You yank it free. Inside, pages of illuminated script, so meticulous, it hurts your eyes. Gold leaf clings to capital letters, tiny saints frozen mid-scream. The margins tell another story. Someone drew a detailed caricature of King Henry VIII with a pig's snout. Historians confirmed Tudor clerks mocked their monarchs in private marginalia penance for writing divine right without gagging. A spider erupts from an inkwell, its legs skating across the web it spun in perfect cursive, 8-legged calligraphy. Impressive, if unsettling. You lean closer. The web spells mean tekel upharsin, biblical graffiti or arachnid performance art. The spider pauses, mandibles clicking. You back away. Beneath a drift of moth-eaten scrolls, you find a wax tablet. Stylus still embedded. Roman bureaucrats used these for disposable notes, melt the wax, reuse the wood. This one's preserved by pure pettiness. The scribbles outline a feud over stolen goats. Someone carved Lucius eats slugs underneath. Petty, eternal. Your elbow jostles an hourglass. Sand hasn't budged in centuries. The glass warps the grains into grotesque pearls. Venetian timekeepers added powdered marble to their sand for that pearlescent shimmer. Stylish, non-functional. Priorities. A diary lies splayed near the window, its spine split like a wishbone. The last entry: if the Duke insists on taxing storm clouds, I shall. The ink bleeds into a comet's tail. Mid-sentence, mid-rebellion. You flip pages, find a pressed four-leaf clover from 1683, Ottoman siege of Vienna crushed under Habsburg cavalry hooves. Yet, here's some clerk's tiny superstition, perfectly preserved. Footprints dent the dust, small, barefoot. Child apprentice. Ghost. The trail leads to a clay jar labeled emerald ink. Inside, a gelatinous sludge that winks under your candle. Chinese scribes mixed soot and fish glue for jet-black permanence. This batch squirms. You reseal the lid. On the wall, a framed sampler cross-stitched with diligence purifies the soul. Threads fray, revealing earlier text beneath. Boredom kills slowly. A thimble rolls off the desk, plink, plink, plinking into shadows. You taste copper, nerves, or haunted office supplies. A cracked slate leans against a stool. Chalk diagrams show celestial movements, or a drunk's interpretation of them. 1705's Great Comet sparked riots, doomsday cults, and really bad poetry. This scribe circled it 8 times, added a frowning face. Comet's still out there, buddy. A rat skeleton wedged in a desk grate, clutching a nib in its jaws. Final act of defiance, or fatal stationary fetish. You nudge it with your boot. The nib disintegrates. Ashes swirl into a miniature sandstorm before settling on your sleeve. Beneath a pile of moldering textbooks, a love letter addressed to dearest vellum, flowery metaphors about her milky surface and endless capacity for his strokes. Creepy or Renaissance romantic. You'll stick with creepy. It's signed with a blotchy heart. Your candle dies, the wick drowning in wax. Moonlight floods through the shattered window. Dust motes dance like frantic shorthand. From the hallway, a dry scraping. Quill on parchment, nails on stone. You pocket the diary, its spine sighs as you go. The door clicks shut behind you. Somewhere inside, a spider resumes its cursive curse. You follow the dry scraping. It leads to double doors, crusted in gilt. One shove, and moonlight floods in the ballrooms. Parquet floor gleams like wet teeth. Chalk diagrams ghost the wood, loops, and arrows worn shallow by spectral heels. Partnerless waltzes carved these grooves, each pivot a fossilized longing. Your boots kick up rosin dust. 18th century dancers powdered floors to glide smoother, ancient baryshnikovs dodging bunions. A metronome ticks, one clack per eternity, on the orchestra platform, its casings splintered, pendulum frozen mid-arc. Doctors once prescribed metronome therapy for hysterical women. Wind it up. Sink your trembling to reason. This one's broken, time itself limping. You crouch, fingertips graze a chalked quadrille diagram. Dancers used these like IKEA instructions, arrows for passion, dots for despair. The Viennese waltz was banned in 1833 for indecent rotation. Historians still argue whether Puritans feared spinning or the chance to whisper treason mid-twirl. A cobweb banner sags from the chandelier, its crystals, now fossilized spider condos. You knock a chord, dust rains down. Powdered wigs used to catch fire under these things, aristocrats dancing bald and ashamed. The minstrel's gallery creaks, sheet music flutters like butchered butterflies. A stained love note hides in a violin's F-hole. My dearest cockroach, meet me where the third floorboard squeaks, romance or insult, Baroque ambiguity. Mirrors line the walls, each silvered with mercury and lies. Your reflection fragments, 100 stewards fidgeting in broken glass. Marie Antoinette's Hall of Mirrors took 21 years to build. This one took 21 weeks to tarnish. You trip on a warped board, it groans. Beneath, a hidden compartment. Inside, silk garters and a dried boutonniere. Regency rave accessories. The flower crumbles, petals scatter as ash. Some debutante's corsage from Napoleon's definitely cancelled invasion party. Moonlight catches a glint, a diamond hairpin wedged in a floor crack. Victorian ballerinas sewed jewels into tutus, bribes for wealthier dance partners. This one's owner likely pirouetted into a baron's carriage. The metronome wheezes, it ticks, stops, starts. A rusted wrench lies nearby. Someone tried fixing fate. Horologists whisper that stopped clocks occasionally twitch, reliving their final talk. You press an ear to the machine, gears grind like molars. Murals peel from the ceiling, cupids morph into gargoyles mid-flight. A splotch of punch stains the conductor's podium, eternal party foul. You trace a finger through the stickiness. It tastes like fermented currants. In the corner, a chaise lounge eaten by moths. Trysts once transpired here, now just moth orgies. A corset stay pokes through the upholstery, revenge of the whalebone. Footprints reappear bare, child-sized, leading to a trunk of mothballed costumes. Plutarch wrote that King Louis XIV owned 413 wigs. This trunk holds 0 surviving dignity. You lift a masquerade mask, its feathers molt into your palm. Venice's plague doctors inspired these things. Fashion meets pestilence. The metronome's pulse quickens, tick, 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 as you approach the grand piano. Sheet music titled Requiem for a Chandelier stains the stand. Middle C sticks, plays itself when the moon hits. You leave through a servant's door, its knob shaped like a despairing cherub. Behind you, the metronome gasps. One final tick strangles into silence. The moon shifts. Chalk diagrams fade a ghost's, etch a sketch resetting. The cherub's pout stays imprinted on your palm as you push into air thick with talcum and rust. A mobile hangs dead center, tin stars strung on cobweb threads. No breeze stirs them, not that the cracked window tries. Someone glued lenses over each star's points, makeshift constellations, throwing jagged rainbows. Ptolemy mapped 48 ancient star patterns. This one charts pure caprice. You sneeze, dust motes erupt like a galaxy. 4th century Roman nannies sang lullabies, while rocking cradles with their feet, multitasking before it was toxic. The crib here gapes empty, mattress gnawed by silverfish. A music box tinks, lid half open, playing a tune that's all wrong. Rockabye baby, but the melody's inverted. Minor keys slithered through the nursery. Rag dolls slump in a corner, stitched smiles unraveling into screams. Their button eyes watch the mobile. 17 stars, 18 if you count the gap where one's missing. Hungarians once believed gaps in mobiles invited ancestor spirits. You squint, does that empty hook? Twitch, a chalkboard leans against a dresser, stick figure family frozen mid-wave. Rains washed their faces into eyeless smears. Beneath, tiny handprints fossilized in plaster. Pompeii's casts come to mind, shadow children preserved mid-play. The music box grinds, down will come baby, as you lift a rattle from the shelf. It's cool, too cool, like metal left in snow. Shake it, no sound. Peering inside ashes. Cremation wasn't common till the late 1800s. Historians still argue whether this was pragmatism or early goth phase parenting. You spot a stack of cloth diapers folded with military precision. Unfold one, a moth flutters out. Regency moms soaked linens in opium-laced, soothing syrups. This moth stumbles, wings dragging like it's blissed out. The closet door yawns, tiny shoes line the floor. Leather ossified into stone, one pair's laces tied in perfect bows, a nanny's last act before fleeing. A hair ribbon curls beneath them, once blue, now the gray of lung smoke. You nudge a rocking horse, its rockers splintered. The saddle's patched with what looks like birth certificates, 18th century families reused parchment for crafts, economics over sentiment. A hoof's stamped with J.F. 1793, initials lost to ledgers. The mobile creaks, finally turning as you crouch to examine a stain. Wine, medicine. Doctors once prescribed mercury cocktails for teething. Drag your sleeve, the stain stays vivid red. Moonlight shifts, the inverted lullaby speeds up. Music box gears glint, someone's scrawled forgive me inside the lid. A teddy bear slumps against the wall gutted. Fistfuls of clock springs spill from its seams. You pocket a tin star, it's lighter than expected. Hollow, shake it, something ethereal, and slight shifts inside. Victorian nurseries hid saint bones in walls, pagan meets papal. This feels cheaper. A draft finally hits, the mobile spins. Lenses project galaxy freckles across your face. For a heartbeat, the stars align. Cassiopeia winks through cobwebs, then stillness reclaims them. The ash-filled rattle slips from your grasp, hits the floor. Dust mushrooms upward. When it clears the handprints on the wall, now number 5. Smallest, one fresh, palm facing out. You press yours against the plaster. Cold seeps through, a fossilized high five. Under the crib, a picture book warped by damp. Pages fused shut, except one. Illustration of a wolf in a nightgown, lullaby lyrics scrambled beneath. Hush, little darling, don't say a word, the rest eaten by mildew. You exit backward, hand on the doorknob, as the music box winds down. Last note warps, a record player dying. The mobile trembles, one tin star drops. It rolls toward your boot, lens cracked. Inside, nothing but a baby tooth. Your boot crunches the fallen tin star. Its jagged lens spills moonlight like broken milk. The baby tooth gleams inside, tiny and barbed as a milk snake's fang. Victorians kept first teeth in lockets, sentimental trophies, when childhood mortality hovered like a vulture. Archaeologists found Roman amulets stuffed with wolf teeth, believed to ward off crib death. You roll the star between thumb and index finger, cold metal warming to skin heat. A draft licks your neck, the mobile shivers. Cobweb threads strain tin constellations, flare and dim. 17 stars left, no, 16. Another drops, clangs against the first. Inside this one, a molar. Soot clings to its roots. Historians still argue whether these trinkets comforted mothers or just numbed their dread. You pocket both stars. They clink like loose change. The nursery breathes stale talcum and wet wool. Across the room, the music box gasps. Its mangled tune stretches into a wheeze, cradle and all. The inverted melody gnaws at your molars. Victorian nurseries sometimes used metronomes to simulate heartbeat rhythms, preferring tempo over tenderness. A floorboard groans beneath the crib. Kneeling, you find a hollow the size of a bread box. Inside, a moth-eaten bonnet and a bone rattle. Shake it, mouse vertebrae clatter. Aztec healers filled rattles with jaguar teeth, assuring warrior spirit infants. This one's labeled papaver in faded needlepoint opium poppy, embroidered along the handle. The closet door swings wide. Tiny shoes now face outward, as if someone turned them while your back was turned. Your palm sweats around the stars, heat seeping through your coat lining. 16th century German nurseries hung sword fragments above cribs, steel against evil eyes. These shoes point toward the threshold, a polite suggestion. Moonlight catches the mobile again. Lenses project warped stars onto your sleeve. Cassiopeia's chair bends armrest snapped. You hum the inverted lullaby, your voice souring the tune. Regency, nannies chewed willow bark while rocking cradles, natural painkillers for ear-splitting shifts. The stain near your knee pulses redder, still wet. A clatter upstairs, the music box slams shut. Silence licks the nursery like a cat cleaning bones. Your breath fogs, the windows closed. Medieval midwives believed winter drafts carried stillborn souls seeking warmth. The mobile creaks stars spin counterclockwise. Tin screeches on cobweb, a sound like forked tines on china. You uncurl your fist, the baby tooth's gone. Only a smear of ash mars your palm. Ottoman sleep manuals advised placing Quranic verses under cribs. This room prefers dental relics. The closet door taps, staccato knocks matching your pulse. Footprints dent the dust, child-sized, leading to the hall. They weren't there 10 breaths ago. You follow, avoiding floorboards fingered by moonlight. The 5th step groans. A wet gurgle answers from the walls. Lead pipes. Thirsty ghosts. The nursery door clicks shut behind you. Keyhole plugged with chewed wax. Georgian nurses did this to eavesdrop on midnight coughs. You press your ear to the wood. Rag dolls giggle, high and airless. Their stitches pop, buttons ping the floor like dropped pennies. One tin star remains dangling by a single thread. It sways now, defying the dead air. Inside, a canine tooth, too sharp for human. Wolf. Roman founders credited lupin wet nurses for their grit. You snap the thread, star nestled in your collar. Downstairs, a clock chimes 4. The mobile still's last lens cracked clean through. Dawn licks the horizon, tin stars frost over with dew. Your shadow stretches toward the hall, elongated and clawed. The rattle's ashes coat your throat. Every swallow tastes of pyres. A floorboard squeaks overhead. Tiny shoes shuffle toward the attic. You count each step. 17. Always 17. You climb the spiral stairs, each step warped like a spine robbed of its vertebrae. The air thins, tasting of tarnished brass and optical grease. At the tower's peak, a domed ceiling split open by ivy. Shattered glass litters the floor, each shard cradling a sliver of moon. The main telescope leans its brass fittings green as gangrene. You peer through the eyepiece. The lunar crater Copernicus stretches into a weeping eye. 17th century astronomers mapped Maria they called seas, though Galileo himself admitted they reeked of delusion. A spider dangles from the lens, 8 legs, bending the Terminator line into a frown. Star charts paper the walls, ink bleeding, where mildew teeth nod at constellations. Sagittarius drips into Scorpio, a celestial murder never recorded in any almanac. Some curl inward, protective scrolls against the damp. Historians still argue whether these water stains erased knowledge or encoded new myths. Your thumbnail snags a corner. The paper dissolves like wet ash. Discarded lenses fill a rosewood cabinet, each labeled in precise, paranoid script. Cassini's Folly, 1703. Halley's Blunder, 1715. One bears Newton's cracked visage, glass, bubbled from a furnace misfire. You press it to your palm. Newtonian physics imprints as a temporary tattoo. Quacks once sold such distortions as truth-tellers claimed they revealed lovers' lies. A draft stirs the charts, their flutter sounds like pages ripped from a diary. Beneath the desk, a cedar box speckled with corrosion. Inside, obsidian discs etched with lunar phases. Mayans timed wars by eclipses, jaguar priests howling at the devoured sun. These are cold to the touch, siphoning your pulse into their volcanic glass. The brass telescope groans, its counterweight chain snaps. The tube swings downward, crushing a nest of parchment wasps. Their nest bursts, paper fragments swirl like a galaxy reverse-born. One scrap clings to your sleeve, Mercury, in retrograde, marriage proposals ill-advised, court astrologers charged extra for bad news, a practice still beloved by therapists. Moonlight slips through the broken dome, illuminating a floor mosaic hidden under debris. 12 zodiac beasts chase their own tails, Aries horns snapped off by boot heels. You kneel, palms flat on Leo's mane. The tiles hum, a frequency felt in molars, not ears. Byzantine navigators used such vibrational mosaics, compasses for landlocked souls. A drawer sticks out, splinters threaten your cuticles. Inside, a leather pouch heavy with lens grinder's tools. They glint too pristine for centuries of neglect. One file's handle swells with rot. A mushroom colony thrives where thumbprints once pressed. Renaissance optics workshops reeked of turnip pulp, used to polish away glass flaws. The largest lens hangs in a corner chained like a rabid dog. Its surface ripples, your reflection becomes a carnival mirror of elongated limbs. Touch it, the glass flexes like living cartilage. 17 fractures spiderweb from the center, each crack a longitude line to nowhere. A Leicester Crowley owned a similar gateway lens, smashed after his cat started reciting Ezekiel. Wind screeches through the dome's rupture, a banshee with perfect pitch. The mosaic tiles rattle Taurus, hoof dislodges, revealing a hollow. Inside, a vial of quicksilver and a bone stylus. Arab star trackers mixed mercury with gall ink, said it mirrored the void between worlds. You uncork the vial, it doesn't pour, doesn't tilt, doesn't acknowledge gravity's tiresome laws. The telescope creaks again, slumping into its final posture. Now it points not at the moon, but at your chest. You step aside, it tracks you. A gearbox whirs, sound of wet teeth grinding bone. Prussian astronomers blamed faulty scopes for failed predictions. Convenient when the king demanded comets as birthday gifts. Your boot scuffs a ledger buried under glass dust. The entries spiral, Jupiter's moon's delicious through claret. Venus prefers cloudy nights to hide her pox scars. A sketch shows a comet with a woman's face. The caption reads Hygien's mistress. Historians agree he worked alone. The margin's lipstick smudge argues otherwise. The quicksilver vial warms, then sears your palm. You drop it. The silver blob rolls toward the mosaic. It quivers at Gemini's feet, forming a question mark. Tower clocks strike 5. The moon shrinks to a pinprick. Your shadow splinters across the walls, 12 versions, all headless. Cold nips your nape. The dome's rupture exhales dawn's first scion. The lens fractures fully, glass rain tinkles like deranged wind chimes. You catch one shard. It shows not your reflection, but Galileo's blind, eyes weeping pitch. His trial transcripts burned poorly. Ash always retains a little defiance. The stairs creak. A metallic scent follows you down. In your pocket, Newton's bubbled lens. It pulses against your thigh. A second, slower heartbeat. Cassini's ghost can keep his faulty orbits. You've stolen better. The chapel door groans. Its hinges flake, rust like dried blood. You step into air thick with myrrh and mildew. A choir of spores greets your lungs. Rotted pews list sideways, their carvings eaten to indecipherable wounds. At the altar, mold blossoms across sacramental bread, black florets devouring holiness. Sacramental wafers once used barley from Nile floodplains, pharaohs, grain sanctified by stealth. Now fungal filaments pulse, veining the host into a living map. Nearby, wine decanters stand crusted shut, liquid evaporated to garnet grit. Medieval monks spiked communion wine, with ergot claimed visions of Mary were divine. Yours just looks like a bad Merlot reduction. Candlesticks flank the desecration, tall sentinels weeping wax cataracts. Their drips memorialize lost prayers, frozen pleas, midway to the vaulted ceiling. You scrape one with a fingernail. The wax squeals like a stepped-on mouse. 18th century penitents carved confessions into candle tallow, burned their sins page by page. These stalactites hold secrets too knotted for fire. Beneath the altar cloth, a hidden compartment clicks open. Inside rests a silver pyx, tarnished to corpse gray. The latch resists until you twist it like a stubborn rib. Within plush velvet, a communion wafer survives, its edges gnawed by time's teeth. Ravenous, you almost taste it, then recall Byzantine priests died biting poisoned hosts. A martyr's death, sure, but what a way to go. Above, a stained glass saint stares, his cobalt robe flaking to skeletal lace. Historians still argue whether those shards depict Francis of Assisi or a drunk uncle. Sunlight fights through grime, splotching your hands with martyrdom red and demon green. Your shadow mocks genuflection, a puppet bowing to nothing. The apse hides a relic cabinet, its lock melted by vandals or votives. Inside, a thorn claimed from Christ's crown, now green as pond scum. Touch it, the tip pricks despite centuries of oxidation. Your blood beads, a tiny offering the chapel swallows greedily. Crusaders stole 300 such thorns, enough to crown a sequoia. Beneath the reliquary, a trapdoor warps nails curled like arthritic fingers. You pry it open, scent of damp stone and frankincense socks. The crypt stairs exhale wet decay each step, slimed with centuries of condensation. Your boot slips, palm slaps moss that squirms like a living hide. Below, burial niches crowd the walls, each casket upholstered in spider silk. One lid splinters, open skeletal hands clasp a prayer book. The pages stick, you tear a corner free. Gothic script denounces heresy, then devolves into grocery lists. 4 eggs, goat milk, indulgences X2. Even the damned need brunch. A child's coffin crumbles at your touch. Tiny bones, frosted with lichen, nestled in the ribcage. A clay dove clutched to where a heart once beat. Its wings shed glaze. Grit sticks to your thumb. Some novices trained ravens to mimic doves. Sacrilege with better acoustics. This fake bird's beak gapes, soundless scream or silent hymn. You pocket the dove, clay cold as a gravestone at dawn. Above, the chapel shudders, its timber bones groaning under ivy's chokehold. Chunks of plaster rain. A mosaic angel loses its head mid-flight. The pyx rolls into a shadow gone before you can chase it. Back at the altar, wax puddles reflect your face, distorted into a priest's grimace. The remaining bread molds pulse rhythmic as a failing heartbeat. You count them 72, though numbers feel blasphemous here. 40 days in the desert, 12 apostles, 7 sins math as a form of prayer. A confessional booth creaks, 1 curtain flutters, despite the stale air. Inside, the penitent's stool wears a depression, shaped like a lifelong kneeler. You sit, splinters bite through your clothes. The priest's grill whispers dust, no absolution, just motes spiraling in weak light. Beneath the kneeler, a parchment scrap wedged in a crack. Unfold it, a sketch of the chapel filled with a congregation of wolves. One howls the liturgy, jaws wide enough to swallow saints. Marginalia insists it's symbolic, but ink teeth look ready to puncture vellum. The candlestick's gutter last wax reserves surrendering to gravity. Shadows thicken, edges blurred like watered ink. Your breath fogs the air, each exhalation a psalm without text. Somewhere above, a lone bell tolls, rusted clapper striking once, twice, never a third. Damp seeps into your sleeves, the cold kinship of holy places turned feral. You exit backward, never turning your spine to the altar's hollow eyes. The door shrieks shut, a final benediction scored by iron lungs. Your pocket weighs heavy, clay dove and phantom wafer. Down the nave, your footprints linger in pollen and rot. They'll fade by dusk, eaten by spores, or the chapel's hungry silence. Somewhere behind you, wax melts, an unvoiced prayer finally pooling where no one kneels. Pale light leaks through greased parchment windows, frost ferns clawing at the glass. You enter a kitchen, petrified by cold. Copper pots grip ladles like hands in rigor mortis. At the hearth, a cauldron of mutton stew stands frozen mid-bubble bone broth, crystallized to jagged amber. Tudor cooks buried ice in straw-lined pits to preserve summer meats, a futile effort here. Your breath hangs, a spectral sous chef judging the ruin. A wooden spoon juts from the stew, handle warped into a permanent question mark. 17th century bakers used live birds in pie crusts, built tiny chimneys to let them sing. This spoon's melody is just splintered oak and silence. You tap the stew's surface. It clinks like a tavern's last toast. Ash carpets the hearth, each footprint releases the scent of dead fires. Kneeling, you brush soot from the andirons, their iron scrolls frosted with rust. One final ember glows, a cherry-red pupil in the grating's black iris. Historians still argue whether Renaissance fire screens were decoration or dragon deterrents. This one lies snapped, its carved salamanders, now headless jesters. The spice rack sags, Jars bleached by decades of weak sun. Crushed cloves mingle with mouse droppings' sweetness, and shit in equal measure. You unscrew a vial, cinnamon fumes punch your sinuses. Medieval apothecaries prescribed nutmeg for plague better breath. Same death. A cockroach skitters over time, its antennae twitching at the void where heat once lived. Above the hearth, a cast iron hook dangles, its curve shaped for haunches of venison. Now it cradles only dust and a spider's ossified web. You touch the chain, links shriek like a tea kettle's ghost. 16th century banquets served roast peacock, red-dressed in its own feathers, vanity on a platter. This racks naked as a plucked chicken. Beneath the chopping block, a rusted trapdoor warps upward. Ice seals its edges, the handle fused to a frosted ring. You kick it, wood splinters, revealing a root cellar strangled by permafrost. Potatoes rest in neat rows, shriveled to prunes in their earthy cradles. One rolls into your palm. It crumbles like a pharaoh's mummified heart. A pantry alcove hides mason jars, contents murky beneath furry continents of mold. You tilt one, a cucumber slides sluggish as a swamp creature. Pickling brine was once brewed with mercury, guaranteed preservation and madness. This specimen outlived its scientists. A bubble rises, greeting your grimace with a lethargic bloop. The icebox door hangs crooked, its latch eaten by rust. Inside, a cheese wheel wears a fur coat of penicillin. You chip a wedge, the knife screeches, echoing off mortar. Marie Antoinette's dairy maid's aged brie in limestone caves, royal mold for royal guts. This wedge could kill a duke or invent penicillin 6 centuries early. Bread molds fossilize on the counter, their spores long since spent, carved into the oak surface, initials and a date. A.T. 1593. Below, a doodle of a pig wearing a crown. Some squire probably drew it while waiting for trencher scraps. You trace the grooves. Splinters bite back with petty vengeance. The hearth's last ember dims, its glow shrinking to a pebble's core. 1723. The year Fahrenheit invented the mercury thermometer. This room's been stuck at cold as a witch's tit ever since. You blow on the coal ash blooms, its warmth dead before reaching your lips. A brick shifts in the chimney, dislodging soot and a cracked clay pipe. Stamped on the stem, a fleur-de-lis worn smooth by thumbs. Colonial tradesmen smoked tobacco laced with lavender calm nerves, hide gin breath. You pocket the pipe, its bowl still cradling a half-smoked dream. Moonlight pierces the clouded windows, slashes the stew pot with silver. Shadows sharpen, the spoon's handle now a sundial's gnomon on the floor. Time's up. The ember exhales, a final wisp of smoke snakes toward the rafters. Your shadow flees the cooling dark, a guest overstaying supper's corpse. You step back, boots crunching salt grit beneath the ice. The kitchen settles, its stillness deeper now, as if the ember took the last noise with it. Even the roach has fled off to nibble frostbitten kingdoms beyond the larder. The door creaks shut, a toothless jaw yawning behind you. Somewhere, a drop of water forms, but it'll take another century to fall. Moonlight bleeds through warped loom strings, casting prison bars across your face. You stand in the weaver's den, wooden beams sagging under moth-eaten tapestries. A half-finished king stares down, his embroidered crown dissolving into woolen chaos. Tudor nobles hung tapestries as insulation, threadbare status symbols masquerading as decor. This monarch's unraveling into a woolly Rorschach blot. Your sleeve snags a dangling thread. The tapestry rips further. Golden thread mingles with cobwebs, royalty reduced to spider condos. 16th century dyers used urine to fix crimson hues, patrician piss for perfect vermilion. These colors have faded to the blush of dried blood. You step back, a loom pedal creaks underfoot like a stepped-on mouse. The shuttle lies dormant, its bronze tip crusted with verdigris. Moths nest in its hollow belly, wings dusted with cobalt dye. Historians still argue whether Flemish mills' Fleur's patterns hid coded messages, or just floral indigestion. Here, the flowers have mutated, tulips sprouting skeletal fingers, roses gnawing their own thorns. You lift a spindle, it crumbles into splinters, and tinnitus hums. Raw wool spills from a ruptured sack, clumps fossilized into mineral clumps. Medieval weavers spun threads with hallucinogenic ergot-laced rye, accidental tripwires in every curtain. This stash reeks of lanolin and regret. A moth flutters up, its wings beating the tempo of a stopped clock. Bolts of fabric slump against walls, silk devoured to lace doilies by silverfish. One shimmers icicle patterns embroidered with real glass beads. Venetian glassblowers once charged per bead, a fortune stitched into every fold. Now it's just prisms for dust motes. You drag a finger through the frost. The beads clink like dead chandeliers. A ledger lies open, column after column of wool weights and dyer's fees. Numbers bleed into margins, angry scribbles about unpaid apprentices. Queen Elizabeth's wedding gown required 6 months of silkworm labor, 1 billion chewed mulberry leaves. These pages record 3 sheep, 2 dyers, and a debt to J. Spinner. The ink's eaten through parchment, financial acid reflux. Beneath the loom, a child's shoe petrified in wool grease. Tiny, maybe 3 years old, the leather cracked like alligator hide. Guild records mention covert child labor, small fingers preferred for delicate threadwork. This cobbler's relic outlived its owner's hands. You nudge it, the sole crumbles like blackened toast. Dyes congeal in cracked ceramic pots, madder root rot, woad mold, welds jaundiced scum. One jar oozes, a psychedelic sludge of fermented indigo and spider eggs. Renaissance dyers guarded their recipes like alchemists, took secrets to plague pits. This one's a biome in revolt. A bubble surfaces, it pops with the sigh of a suffocated scream. The warped wooden comb hangs askew, its teeth bent from beating threads into submission. You pluck one, it twangs a G-sharp into the wool-choked air. Loom combs were once repurposed as torture devices, innovation's dark punchline. This one's too brittle to harm anything but dust. A cushion lies gutted, horsehair intestines spilling onto oak planks. Needles protrude like porcupine quills, rusty accusations of abandoned projects. Tudor seamstresses hid love notes in embroidery hoops, stitched subtext in silk. These needles point only to the floor. You sit, a sprung spring punctures your thigh with Victorian disapproval. Above, a mobile of bone bobbins sways, knuckles polished smooth by dead hands. They click like teeth in a fever dream. Apprentices carved them from sheep bones, whittling spare parts between shifts. Now they dangle, a xylophone of servitude. Your breath moves them, they chitter warnings in Morse code. The king's tapestry flutters, his woolen mouth yawns into a scream. Gold thread rips further, a split seam revealing brick behind glory. Bayeux tapestries, 230 feet of propaganda, embroidered lies outliving the conquered. This fraud won't survive the decade. You trap the fraying edge under a rusted shears. The blade bites through centuries of pretense. Moths rise in a sudden cloud, powdered wings blizzard the room. One lands on your wrist, its body dusted with ultramarine pigment. Crusaders looted lapis lazuli for pigment, sacrilege as art supply. This insect wears stolen holiness. You blow, it spirals into darkness, a falling sapphire. The loom's skeleton groans, heddle bars sagging like a drunkard's shoulders. A single heddle string remains, twanging in a draft's indifferent breath. Weavers called this the soul of the loom, nervous system of the machine. This soul's on life support. You pluck it, the note evaporates before reaching the rafters. Beneath a pile of samplers, a mouse nest woven from unraveled brocade. Pink babies squirm threads of Tyrian purple and peasant brown. Their mother watches from a torn valance, eyes reflecting your invasion. 17th century guilds executed rodents for theft of wool, kangaroo courts with tiny nooses. You leave her a crumb of wax-sealed cheese, penance for ancestral crimes. A shattered mirror leans against the wall. Its shards hold slivers of tapestry. Your reflection fractures, a cubist portrait of intruder guilt. Renaissance mirrors cost more than farms, vanity's down payment. These fragments bargain bin your face into avant-garde confessions. You pocket a sliver, carry the guilt like a misplaced heir. Outside, wind howls through a broken pane. It whistles across loom strings. The room becomes a discordant harp, nature's sick joke on human order. Medieval churches banned polyphony, called it the devil's arithmetic. This symphony's all division. You cover your ears, the moonlit threads hum louder. The shuttle stirs, moths spill like coins from a slot machine. Their wings churn the air, a snow globe of extinct colors. One lands on the ledger, obliterating J spinner beneath iridescent scales. You close the book. Its spine exhales in relief. Dawn glows a gray eraser, smudging the tapestry's remaining gold. The king's last eye dissolves, woolly cataract claiming his reign. Your shadow stretches toward the door, a warped weft fleeing the loom. Somewhere, a single thread still quivers, vibrating with the memory of hands. Salt crusts your lips as you descend cracked stone steps. The dock lies gutted by vanished tides. Rotting hulls jut from mudflats, rib cages picked clean by decades of sun. Barnacles scab every surface. Their calcium scars map years of abandonment. Roman engineers mixed volcanic ash into concrete for docks. Their Pompeii piers still stand. This quay crumbles like stale bread. You kneel, fingers brush a keel's warped planks. Wormholes pattern the wood, a drunkard's constellation chart. 16th century sailors mistook barnacle geese, hatching from crustaceans, proof of life's stubborn lies. Here, neither fowl nor fish remain. The mud emits a wet clock tick, groundwater weeping through cracked pilings. A figurehead tilts nearby, her cedar face eaten to a scream. Gilded scales flake off her tail, mermaid turned mudlocked hag. Historians still argue whether Viking dragon ships carried cursed tablets in their hulls, or just rats and rot. Her empty eye socket cradles a crab. Its pincers click Morse code dirges. You pry open a cargo hatch. Spiders boil out in a silk panic. Inside, silt preserves tea bricks stamped with Qing dynasty seals. British traders smuggled opium in false-bottomed tea chests, profitable poisons wrapped in ceremony. These leaves have fossilized into shale, their bitterness leached into salt. A rusted anchor chain lies coiled like a mechanical bowel. Each link squeals when touched, operatic protest against disturbance. 18th century sailors believed silent chains foretold mutiny. Another nautical superstition debunked. This one's aria could wake Neptune. You step over it. Your boot sinks into loam smelling of dead oysters. Salt-eaten ledgers pile in a rotted chest, pages welded by damp. Entries mention 3 bolts, indigo damask, 2 barrels Stockholm tar, 17 camel skins. Tudor customs officers took bribes in saffron and unicorn horns. Tax evasion spiced with mythology. These numbers blur, ink dissolved into Rorschach stains. A sextant lodges in the mud, its brass arms twisted by storms. You tilt it, the horizon bends, reuniting sea and sky briefly. Portuguese navigators mapped coasts using Arab astrolabes, science stitched from conquests. This relic's too crooked to betray north from south. Tide pool creatures dart in the muck, transparent shrimp tracing forgotten trade routes. One crawls onto your thumb, its body a glass vial of organs. Medieval apothecaries sold desiccated sea monkeys as dragon nymphs, charlatans' Viagra. You flick it back, it vanishes into murk. Rigging dangles from a splintered mast, hemp fibers unraveling to lint. A cormorant perches atop, its wings spread like blackened sails. Qing fishermen trained cormorants to fish, with silver rings around their throats. Hunger leveraged into servitude. This one's ring has rusted, its neck bare as a debtor's finger. You find a drawer of whalebone scrimshaw, sperm whales carved into their own teeth. One depicts a shipwreck, tiny sailors praying to a smiling kraken. New Bedford harpooners etched porn on bone to pass icy voyages, whale ivory diaries of longing. The kraken's tentacles curl suggestively, migration of loneliness. Broken ceramics jut from the mud, celadon shards glinting like neutered jade. A Ming dish survives intact, cobalt dragons chasing their tails through clouds. Portuguese carracks carried Ming porcelain to Europe. Aristocrats ate off dragons, while missionaries ate Mackenzies. You rub the glaze, its luster unfazed by centuries of muck. Ship rats nest in a shattered barrel, their eyes flash red in your lantern's beam. They gnaw a waterlogged Bible psalms, reduced to pulpy lace. 17th century ships carried cats, rated able seamen, salty mousers drawing wages in herring. These rats reign unchallenged, nibbling verses about dominion. Barnacles crunch, underfoot, each step a massacre of calcified lives. One shell clings to your soul, its plates form a Fibonacci spiral. Darwin spent 8 years studying barnacles before tackling evolution, desperation's fertile ground. You scrape it off, the spiral persists in your boot print. Low tide reveals a rusted strongbox, its lock clotted with corrosion. Inside, a pistol rusts beside a pearl necklace, violence and vanity in a steel womb. Blackbeard stocked pistols preloaded for boarding parties, the OG multitasker. The trigger crumbles its threat, retired by brine. Moonlight pries a diamond of glass from a ship's lantern. It melts across the mudflats. You shield your eyes. A prismatic afterimage burns your retina. Pharos lighthouse guided ships with polished bronze mirrors, ancient Amazon delivery beacon. This shard's reflection shows only your silhouette, stretched thin as rigging wire. Overturned longboats fossilize in the silt, their curves echoing pregnant whale bellies. You trace a serpent figurehead, its tongue eroded to a stubbed pencil. Leif Erikson's men mistook Newfoundland fog for Greenland, navigating by wishful thinking. This prow points steadfastly nowhere. A sodden quilt balloons from a captain's cabin, wool, flowers blooming with algae. Needlework proclaims home is where the anchor drops, threadbare irony in indigo. Sailors' wives stitched tautological homilies, domestic spells against drowning men. The fabric tears, a million drowned spores escape. Your shadow merges with the mermaids, muddy usurper usurped. Waves whisper half a mile out, taunting their self-imposed exile. Venice dredged canals nightly to keep trade routes open, a city flossing its teeth. The key submits to entropy, passive resistance through decay. Dawn bleeds pewter light over the bay. Tide's first tentative tongue licks the shore. Barnacles gape, siphon mouths drinking the sea's return. You retreat as water reclaims the strongbox, its secrets bubbling through briny gaps. Salt crystallizes on your hands, false frost whispering of deeper droughts. The cormorant dives, a black dagger piercing gray waves. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a living ship's bell tolls. Here, only the shrimp hear it. You push into a room choked with headless silhouettes, mannequins frozen mid-gesture, like courtiers mid-insult. Silk drapes slump, once vivid indigo, now the gray of storm-shrouded dusk. Frayed hems spill threads, each strand a cursive accusation. Historians still argue whether Victorian mourning attire expressed grief or just showed off wealth through wasted fabric. A moth-eaten frock coat clings to one dummy, its buttons green as envy's aftertaste. Air hangs thick with vinegar, and lie ghosts of Renaissance divats. Tapestries depict hunting scenes, embroidered boars bleed rusty thread from arrow wounds. 17th century Parisian tailors used urine to set red dyes, alchemy's golden shower. You hold your breath, wisdom outweighing curiosity. A needle glints, rusted straight, through a heart-shaped patch, stitched with ever yours. Tudor love tokens often hid locks of hair, or pox scabs for spite. This one's message phrase, promises dissolved by sweat and spite. Bolts of cloth molder in corners, brocade blistered with mildew. One roll of damask oozes something amber, centuries-old starch turned to syrup. Chinese sericulture began with Empress Lei Zhu's tea-sipping silkworms, luxury spun from a spilled cocoon. Your sleeve brushes a velvet drape. It powders like dried snake skin. A corset dangles, ribs splayed like a fossilized predator. Whalebone stays warped by heat fashions answer to continental drift. Marie Antoinette's dressmaker survived the revolution by stitching pockets hidden from male designers, patriarchy's blind spot. You trace the garment's spine. It arcs like a question mark. Scissors crusted with orange bloom rest beside shredded patterns, paper snowflakes cut by nihilists. An invoice lists 3 ells of Flanders linen, 12 ounce of thread. Half a day's mourning. Elizabethan sumptuary. Laws fined peasants for wearing lace. Class warfare through haberdashery. The numbers fade, arithmetic undone by silverfish. Sunlight slants through moth-holed curtains, striping dummies into prisoners behind bars. A wig stand wears a nest, twigs and hairpins tangled with sparrow bones. 18th century perukes used horsehair coated in flour, antiqued dandruff chic. You sneeze, the nest trembles, but holds. Your shadow stretches across a full-length mirror, its mercury backing mottled like diseased lungs. Reflected fabrics flutter, though the air stands still. Moths rehearsing a waltz. Versailles dress code required new outfits for each court appearance. Fast fashion's cadaverous great-grandparent. You step closer, your ghostly double mouths words without sound. In a drawer, thimbles filled with spider eggs. They rattle when shaken, maracas for a silent fiesta. Napoleonic soldiers sewed secret compartments into uniforms, deserters carried maps in cufflinks. These thimbles guard only emptiness, their potential spent. Beneath a work table, a pincushion shaped like a crown. Rusty needles jut at angles, Caligula's porcupine diadem. Jane Austen stitched novels between sewing chores, plots punctured by embroidery. You nudge it with your toe, a monarch of minutiae. Thread spools roll underfoot, unwinding trails toward mouse holes. Linen, silk, hemp all reduced to fungal banquets. Medieval brides wrapped dowries in cloth, woven from their own hair, matrimonial clinginess. You follow a crimson strand, it snaps in your palm like a warning. Dust cascades from a tailor's ledger pages, stuck with tarnished straight pins. Entries detail Miss H's peplum, Sir W's clandestine breeches, repairs to morning crepe, chewed by ravens, Victorian post-mortem photography, propped corpses in chairs, family portraits with extras. The ink bleeds sentences devoured by acidic paper. A lace handkerchief blankets a rat's skeleton, death shroud for the bourgeoisie. Its tiny skull grins, mocking the futility of hem allowances. Parisian couture houses burned excess designs to prevent counterfeiting, artistic suppression via bonfire. You lift the cloth, ribs crumble into granular snow. Evening seeps through broken windows. The steward's lantern stirs moths from woolen graves. They orbit the light, crazed satellites trapped in fashion's event horizon. You exit backward. The dummies turn their absent heads to watch. You descend into wet silence, steps sinking into moss-slicked stone. Names once chiseled deep now melt like sugar tombs, rain's patient erasure. A child's epitaph survives. Here lies one whose name the angels misspelled. Medieval masons reused old coffin slabs, flipping them to save costs. Your nail traces a Roman numeral. X becomes V, becomes a groove for worms. Damp air thickens with the musk of split limestone catacomb breath. Historians still argue whether Parisian bone ossuaries stored plague victims or just enthusiastic parish recyclers. An effigy's face wears a smile, teeth filed flat by centuries of drafts. 17th century grave robbers stole lead coffins to mold bullets, death reshaped for more death. You kneel, palm against a slab, where beloved wife becomes B. Why? Lichen blooms in the letters, botanical graffiti. Beneath, faint tool marks suggest older words scoured away. The 1666 Great Fire of London cremated bodies mid-plot, stoking panic about resurrection sabotage. Your thumb finds a chip in the stone, flint-napped by desperation or boredom. Shadows pool in a dry font, crusts of sacramental wine at its rim. A crusader's shield carved into the wall now sprouts stone fungi, heraldic mold. Tudor mourners left cramp rings on tombs, iron bands twisted during funerals to cure arthritis. You lift a corroded ring, it flakes like a burnt sigil. Names overlap in the vaulted ceiling, a palimpsest of the forgotten. Reginald de Vry, 1598, drips into Margaret's 1722. Chronology, dissolved by seepage. Scholars found Viking runes under Winchester Cathedral's nave. Time's layers compressed like bad geology. Your boot scuffs a tile. It clicks hollow, promising the earth beneath. One alcove cradles a fresco flaking into abstraction. Saints reduced to confetti. Their golden halos tarnished to the green of stagnant ponds. Egyptian mummies were ground into Renaissance-era medicine apothecaries. Cannibalism, the steward's lantern gutters, resurrecting the Archangel Michael in soot smear. A tomb lid tilts, its resident's skeleton visible through a crack. Fibulae intact, even in death, holding themselves together. Medieval Scots buried lords with mismatched bones to confuse grave robbers, spiteful anatomy puzzles. You press the lid, it exhales dust, tinged with old incense. Flagstones by the altar wear grooves from 6 centuries of knees, devotion's erosion. A scrap of vellum clings to an iron grate, psalms illegible, except deliver us. Colonial Bostonians painted false crypts to deter body snatchers. Theatrical medicine. Your shadow stretches across the grate, rippling over bone shards below. A niche hides a dried bouquet rosemary and ivy crisped to ash. Tacked above it, a miniature portrait, its subject's eyes scratched out. Victorian spirit mediums claimed to photograph ghosts, blurry smears sold as ectoplasm. The frame warps delicate nose, now a hook, lips a jagged rip. Light glints off quartz veins in the wall, false stars in a false sky. A marble urn gapes, its contents leached by floods into the foundation. Pompeii's burial plaques listed professions. Bakers mocked eternally for burned offerings. The steward's sleeve brushes the urn. It tolls like a distant bell. Wind sneaks through a crack, whistling the anthem of a country that died twice. Epitaphs blur further, rains ink smearing the manuscript of rot. 19th century spiritualists held seances in crypts, table knocks echoing in literal chambers. You inhale wet stone and mold, air thick enough to finger paint. Your reflection warps in a puddle, stretched into a wraith on the surface. Below, something glints, a signet ring wedged between stones. Crusaders wore rings engraved with secret heresies, political collusion in cursive. You reach, fingertips meet cold water and colder metal. Moonlight bleeds through a cracked, stained glass saint, dyeing your hand bruised violet. The figure's face is missing, shattered during Cromwell's iconoclastic hissy fit. Shakespeare's grave avoids curses by threatening verse, poetic extortion that worked. You flex your colored hand, phantom stigmata from a glass wound. At the crypt's heart, an empty frame where a plaque should hang. Mortar bristles with iron staples, proof of words pried loose. Charles Dickens requested a humble tomb, rejected in favor of Westminster Abbey's circus. Your shadow steps into the void, filling the nameless rectangle. Centipedes flee your heat, scuttling over dates and epithets they helped erase. One pauses on Anno Domini, adding its own ellipsis of legs. The catacombs of Rome once hosted dinner parties, morbid flexes for the bored rich. You straighten spine cracking in sympathy with the settling stones. Dawn's first licks at the staircase, a tongue testing spoiled milk. You climb backward, carving your name in the humidity. With each step, the crypt sighs its breath, tugging your coat like a beggar. You climb into air gone thin, the crypt's damp cling shed like a skin. Above, skeletal beams cradle fractured glass, panes shattered into dragonfly wings. A molted feather spirals through a sunbeam, its barbs combed apart by drafts. Historians still debate whether Tudor aviaries housed birds for beauty or to test allegories about clipped wings. Your heel crunches an eggshell, opal shards grinding to dust beneath boot leather. Empty nests line alcoves, woven from horsehair and desperate optimism. One cradles a porcelain egg, painted with haphazard stars by a less than devoted raven. 17th century falconers fed hawks powdered pearls, believing it sharpened their eyes for royal hunts. You lift the fake egg, it's warm, as if the lie still incubates. Sunset bleeds through stained glass jays, their cobalt feathers staining your arms bruise purple. A perch dangles by a thread, its swing frozen mid-arc. Victorian ladies wore hummingbird corpses as hat pins, a trend that died faster than the birds. You nudge the perch, it spins soundlessly, missing the screech of claws. A bronze bell hangs askew, clapper rusted into a permanent mute. Its inscription names a dove lost in 1703, Eurydice, who flew contrary to the storm. Medieval popes declared swallows unclean, yet let them nest in Vatican rafters. Your breath fogs the bell, briefly reviving its dull gleam. Pigeon skeletons litter the floor, ribcages bloomed like glass flowers underfoot. Their beaks gape at rafters where wind impersonates cooing. Aztec emperors kept gardens of albino peacocks, their white feathers reserved for gods. You pocket a wishbone, it snaps in half before reaching your coat. A ledger lies open on a rotted desk, entries tallying birdseed and futility. March 14th, sparrow escaped. March 15th, sparrow replaced. The ink bleeds dates and deaths, merging into a single gray stain. Renaissance physicians prescribed nightingale bile for melancholy, a cure quieter than the disease. You shut the ledger, its spine exhales a moth. One cage dangles from a chain, its door ajar, hinges devoured by rust. Inside, a mummified canary clings to its swing, feet fused to the perch. Dutch traders once sold caged blue macaws as sky tulips. Most died before reaching port. You rock the cage. It creaks a lullaby for no fledgling. Sunlight frays as clouds clot the skylights. Days end without fanfare. A tapestry droops from the wall, embroidered falcons hunting embroidered hares. Look closely. The threadbare patches form constellations only hungry eyes recognize. Catherine de Medici's chefs served roast songbirds, stuffed with even smaller birds. Your shadow rips a falcon's head in two. Dust motes swarm where wings once beat, now just spectators to stillness. A broom leans forgotten, its bristles splayed like a dead pheasant's tail. Tokyo's 19th century cage cafes let patrons dine with cuckoos, their clocks rewound. You grip the broom handle, it crumbles to splinters and nostalgia. Wind riffles pages of an avian encyclopedia, illustrations fluttering as if fleeing. Gold leaf condors peel from the paper, leaving naked vellum. The Chicago World's Fair displayed a clockwork nightingale crowds, wept at its soulless song. You press the book closed, a pressed dandelion winks from its pages. Moonlight pries through a cracked dome, etching silver pathways across the tiles. You follow them to an alcove stacked with tiny coffins, each labeled unhatched. The air smells of mildew and abandoned potential. French revolutionaries released palace parrots. The birds kept shrieking, "Long live the king." A coffin lid shifts, nothing inside but a pin feather and regret. Your reflection warps in a forgotten bird bath, water black and thick as oil. Beneath the surface, an iridescent beetle drowns mid-swim, a counterfeit jewel. Audubon killed thousands of birds to paint them, immortalizing their stillness. You skim the water, ripples erode your face into something primordial. Shingles skid from the roof, night gnawing the aviary beam by beam. A draft plucks a down feather, sending it kite-high into cobweb rafters. Historians still argue whether quetzal feathers in Aztec headdresses symbolized freedom or the cost of plucking it. You catch the feather, its spine snaps like a failed punchline. Dawn licks the horizon, a hesitant intruder. You descend the spiral, stares backward, each step erasing the aviary's chokehold. Behind you, a lone eggshell rocks, as if something stirs in its emptiness. The scales tilt your breath, suspended in their lopsided yawn. Lead weights dominate the left pan, each lump a tombstone for ambition. The right holds a single gold coin, its face worn into blindness. You recall reading how Paracelsus prescribed mercury for immortality. Patients died gleaming like tarnished mirrors. A spider dangles between the pans, its thread warping the balance further. Dust motes swarm the crucible's mouth, cradling ash too light to measure. You squint. Was that a spark? 17th century alchemists swapped recipes for toadskin elixirs, believing amphibian toxins held cosmic truths. The ash sticks to your thumb, a charcoal smudge writing its own epithet. Shelves sag under alembics, their coiled tubes mimicking petrified serpents. One vial glows faintly, celadon liquid whispering of arsenic and desperation. Tudor queens drank distilled gold for youth, their portraits outlasting their liver spots. You uncork the vial, the scent singes nose hairs with a citrus rot. A ledger lies splayed nearby, symbols devolving into charcoal smears. Lunar eclipse distilled, third attempt yields, the rest eaten by mice. Experts think medieval labs once buzzed with sulfur and saffron, aromas pricier than outcomes. Your nail traces a half-drawn Ouroboros, the snake biting nothing but air. Bronze mortars crowd a workbench, their pestles fossilized in dried resins. You pry one free, it screeches like a cat mid-bath. Roman healers ground pearls into love potions, wealth dissolved by fickle hearts. The mortar's bowl holds a wedding ring, filigree, tarnished to a forgetful gray. Rain seeps through a cracked ceiling, each drop etching the stone floor. Puddles reflect crucibles in funhouse distortions, glass swelling into pregnant bellies. Renaissance adepts wrote in cipher, their breakthroughs buried under paranoid doodles. You skim the rainwater, fingers emerging stained with roof rust. A taxidermied raven presides over the chaos, one wing dangling by wire. Its beak grips a scroll labeled magnum opus, draft. Victorian occultists claimed black feathers channeled cosmic voids and sold them as quills. You pluck a feather, it disintegrates into a mini supernova of dust. Furnace bricks crumble where flames once gnawed at the impossible. A single coal winks in the debris, its heat a memory of embers. Archaeologists found Ming Dynasty labs littered with jade shards, failed vessels for eternal breath. You poke the coal, it crumbles like a stale cookie. Cabinets cough open, drawers vomiting crumpled parchment and moth wings. One holds a sapphire pendant, chain tarnished to verdigris lace. Persian alchemists trapped moonlight in gem facets, charging nobles extra for the starlight tax. You dangle the pendant, it spins, casting cerulean freckles on the walls. Your shadow stretches across a recipe scratched into the floor. VII parts regret. III ashes of you. The ratios bleed into cracks. Mathematics, undone by entropy. Historians still argue whether transmutation texts were literal or metaphors for cleansing the soul. You scuff the numbers, toe meeting something brittle underfoot. A rat skull grins up, its incisors clutching a copper ingot. 18th century con men sold philosophers stone fragments, riced with fool's gold flakes. You nudge the skull, it tips, spitting its treasure into the grime. Moonlight slinks through a barred window, slicing the scales in half. The lead pan now eclipses the gold entirely, dominion of decay made manifest. A draft whistles through the raven's hollow chest, a last gasp of ceremony. You pocket the ingot, its edges sharp enough to draw blood. The final crucible holds a lump, unidentifiable under centuries of soot. Scrubbing reveals a thumbprint preserved in silver, minuscule whorls echoing your own. Elizabethan laws forbade alchemy after dark, lest night amplify the devil's chemistry. You press your thumb against the mark, two strangers bridging time through tarnish. Dawn leaks through the window, a timid spectator. You exit as the scales finally collapse, lead and gold embracing in the dust. Behind you, the raven's remaining wing falls, a pennant for surrendered quests. The hive exhales, its hexagonal breath stale as November air. Combs droop, amber webs sagging under gold turn turned to glass. You press a finger into honey, thick as chilled lard, and wonder if Cleopatra's embalmers used this same stickiness. Rumor claims she bathed in the stuff, though her bees probably never dealt with this silence. Last summer's honey pyramids cling to the rafters, their geometry blurred by decades. A bubble rises in one cell pop, then nothing. Medieval monks whispered that bees hummed psalms, but these hives hold more quiet than a cathedral at matins. You scrape resin from a beam, it crumbles into pollen-tinged sand. Your boot sinks through a crust of wax, caves echoing underfoot. Historians still argue whether monastery apiaries mapped the constellations or just housed very ambitious insects. A moth flutters up, its wings dusted with caramel flakes. 16th century Hungarians believed eating moth wings cured mad honey poisoning, results presumably mixed. Ladders lean against silent supers, rungs sticky with ambition. You climb each step, puckering the waxen floor. At the top, a queen's chamber lies cracked open, its occupant mummified in royal jelly. Tudor beekeepers wore silver veils to trick the swarm's eyes, a fashion statement masquerading as safety gear. Frames drip stalactites of crystallized nectar, fingers of sweat from a sleeping giant. You snap one off, it melts on your tongue slower than regret. A rusted smoker rests nearby, its bellows stiff as a widow's posture. Pompeii frescoes show beekeepers using terracotta pipes, gentler on delicate colonies than all this iron. Wooden tools fossilize in corners, their handles split by patient rot. One hive tool juts from a wall, a rusted Excalibur in a waxen stone. Victorian gossip claimed Napoleon's coronation robes hid venom vials, anti-assassination couture. You wiggle the tool, it snaps, leaving a jagged smirk in the timber. A veil hangs from a hook, netting shredded by decades of mice. You drape it over your head. The world fuzzes into honey-toned static. 17th century botanists swore veils helped them hear the hive mind. Mostly, they just got stung less. Dust motes swarm the mesh, your own personal be less. Swarm. Sections of comb litter the floor, each cell a tiny cathedral window. You kneel, knees cracking louder than the hive ever did. A desiccated worker clings to a petrified larva, its mandibles locked in mid-cleaning. Renaissance painters used honey to bind pigments, their Madonnas preserved by the very thing they're missing. Wind hisses through gaps in the clapboard. A wasp's nest rattles like a maraca. You stab it with a stick, parchment flakes drift down. Carthaginian generals catapulted beehives at enemies, an early form of chemical warfare. The nest's core holds a mouse skull occupant too, who underestimated bees. Glass jars line a shelf, their labels eaten by light. One holds a wingless drone, legs curled in a question mark. Norse myths claimed bees sprouted from emir's flesh, though giants rarely produce something this fragile. You unscrew the lid. The scent punches you with fermented clover. A bronze bell dangles above the door, its clapper mossy green. Supposedly, ringing it before harvests soothed the swarm, a dinner bell for theft. You tap it, the sound dies in your ribs. 18th century nuns sold angelic honey. For 10 times the price holiness has a markup. Cedar boxes stack near the entrance empty, except for spider condos. You pry one open, silk curtains billow in your face. Incan messengers carried honey cakes for endurance, fueling sprints across the Andes. A desiccated orb weaver glares up tenant rights clearly violated. Shadows pool where sunlight pierces knot holes, liquid gold etching the walls. You stand in a beam, suddenly center stage in an apiary opera. Byzantine emperors kept jeweled hives in their throne rooms, power plays with literal worker drones. Your shadow stretches, a queen-sized silhouette crowned with veil fuzz. The steward's ledger falls open to apiary entries, dwindling yearly. 5th moon. Hive 3 silent wax reserves. Flecks of comb cling to the page. Archaeologists found 9,000-year-old honey in Georgia, still edible if you ignore the existential dread. You peel a flake off the paper. It dissolves into sweetened dust. Behind the last super, a wall sconce holds a candle, honeycomb pattern etched into tallow. You light it. The flame slurps wax greedily. 19th century mediums used honey candles to attract benevolent spirits, mostly attracted mice. Drips pool at the base, a tiny golden age puddle. Outside, dusk bruises the sky. The steward's shadow merges with hive silhouettes. One last comb glows in the window, amber pane, warping the night. You snap it off. The honey inside tastes of lavender and endings. Somewhere, a forgotten queen's pheromones linger, ghost commands to a swarm that evaporated. The oak door groans, its iron handle cold as a stopped heart. You step into the tower, air thick with the smell of frozen oil. Above, gears claw the darkness like paralyzed spiders. A century of rust webs the pulleys, each cable frayed to copper hairs. Your breath swirls among pendulum cables, stillness amplifying every exhale. The clock face stares down, its numerals peeled like sunburnt skin. Historians still argue whether medieval timekeepers added dragon carvings to ward off mechanized heresy. You scrape a fingernail across exi, flakes of guilt taste of battery acid. Pigeon coos shiver the air. You crane your neck, feathers muffle the bell's bronze throat. 17th century Venetians tied notes to bird legs as living postcards. This one's message long digested. Nest materials include shredded ledger pages and what might have been a silk glove. Wrought iron stairs spiral upward, each step a frozen cymbal crash. You ascend, spiraling through the smell of arrested momentum. Cogs jut from the wall, their teeth clenched mid-bite. Tudor clockmakers hid tiny swordsmen in gear trains, whimsical guardians against mechanical gremlins. One figure's blade snaps off in your palm, a martyr to entropy. The pendulum hangs askew, its rusted joint screaming for oil. You push it. The bob sways 2 inches before seizing. Fragments of the Antikythera mechanism still baffle scholars. Its bronze teeth more precise than Victorian clocks. A spider dangles from the pendulum rod, arachnid caretaker of dead kinetics. Dust mosaics coat the floor, centuries of groutless tile. You crouch, sweeping debris with a flattened hand. Glass shards glint, remnants of the moon phase dial Napoleon's engineers allegedly looted. 19th century spiritualists claimed stopped clocks, captured departing souls. Your shadow stretches unconvinced. The weight shaft stretches into blackness, chains coiled like petrified snakes. You drop a gear fragment. It clatters for 7 full seconds. Renaissance princes displayed jeweled clocks as emblems of controlled time, power theater for nervous guests. The echo suggests a basement full of tangled chainmail. Faces glitter on the mainspring drum, engraved zodiac signs flaking into abstraction. You trace Leo's mane. A fleck of gold sticks to your sweat. Archaeologists found a Saxon sundial carved with obscene doodles, timekeeping, and mischief, eternal bedfellows. The drum won't budge, a Titan's wristwatch frozen at 11:59. Pigeon wings slap above the bird, circles twice before vanishing through a louver slit. Cold starlight stripes the gear trains, illuminating a mouse-chewing cable insulation. Victorian factories used pigeon Chinese letter oil to lubricate delicate gears. Ethical committees were thinner back then. The rodent stares, its eyes twin pennies in the gloom. You press your ear to the escapement. Silence hums louder than any tick. A faded prayer is etched into the mechanism. Saint Benedict, protect us from hurried hours. 8th century monks argued whether clock towers constituted idolatry. The debate snores on in academic footnotes. Frost etches the southern clock face. Icicles dagger through IX and III. You exhale on the glass. Your breath fog forms a minute hand. One stubborn gear twitches when prodded, then disintegrates into oxidized confetti. Mongol invaders used captured clockmakers as siege engine consultants. Career pivots with mixed success. The steward's ledger entry here reads, only horologium silentum. Ink bled into Latin ambiguity. You flake rust from the entry. Particles swirl like dead seconds in your palm. Pigeons once carried medieval tax deadlines, feathered couriers outracing sundials. A downy feather floats onto the page, quill replacement for unwritten hours. Wind howls through the bell chamber. A draft pulls your sleeve upward. You grip the frayed rope. Its fibers prick like unbraided history. 16th century rope makers worked naked to avoid fiber snags. Occupational hazards included both splinters and existential questions. The bell stays mute, tongue tucked behind corroded lips. Beneath the tower, shadows bleed into indigo. Dawn fiddles with the horizon. You descend past frozen gears, each creak a protest against progress. A cockroach explores the pendulum's pivot, tiny usurper of timeless real estate. The last step groans, announcing your return to the world of seconds and size. The scullery door sticks your shoulder, shoves it open with a wet splinter crack. Copper pots dangle green-veined and sagging like exhausted moons. Your reflection warps across a stockpot's belly, nose stretched to a taper's snout, smile twisted into a snarl. Industrial age housemaids scrubbed these daily, vinegar and elbow grease battling tarnish. A ladle drifts in the stew pot, opaque broth replaced by liquid shadow. You dip a finger, it comes up clean. Rats stole the soup decades back. Dawn seeps through a high-slit window, lighting dust, motes in a slow stir. You trace a bread knife's handle, wood nibbled by generations of silverfish. 18th century Parisian kitchens hung copper to supposedly purify water. Historians still argue if it prevented cholera or just looked posh. A cockroach skates across a colander, its legs drumming a Morse code brunch order. Rusted faucets weep something viscous. Each droplet hits the sink with a tar-thick plop. You twist a valve, it snaps off, revealing a spider condo in the pipe. Tudor scullions whispered that blackened pans absorbed a cook's rage better to serve bland gruel than cursed stew. The ladle bumps your wrist, handle warm despite the room's chill. Soot fingerprints web the ceiling, centuries of kitchen boys scaling shelves for cinnamon. One jar remains salt, and crystallized lemon peel fused into a geodesic boulder. You chip at it. A vinegar sting pricks your eyes. Cleopatra allegedly engineered the first recorded copper still, though her perfumers probably cared more about rosewater than hooch. Beneath the sink, a mouse nest winks with stolen foil, Georgian-era takeout scraps. You nudge a grease-caked skillet, its surface etched with initials and a crude phallus. Renaissance apprentices left these doodles everywhere. Stonecutters, scribes, even the guy who crafted Charlemagne's soup tureen. The ladle taps the pot rim, a hollow clang that skitters up your spine. Dish rags fossilize in the sink, their fibers fused by mystery sludge. You peel one free, it crumbles like ancient papyrus. Archaeologists found a Viking Age ladle in Newfoundland, left by a homesick Norseman craving fish stew. This one levitates again, hovering 3 inches above the pot. Your breath stills. The ladle drops. A pantry door hangs ajar, its hinges eat by granular rust. Inside, teacups huddle like skulls, their handles snapped off mid-sip. You lift a saucer. The Royal Worcester emblem peeks through tea stains. Victorian servants hid love notes in flower bins, their trysts written in dust. This one's parchment, dissolved long ago, only a rusted thimble remains. Beneath the rotting dough board, a whetstone grins, its surface scarred by cleavers and gossip. You drag the bread knife across it. A spectral shhhing haunts the air. Historians still debate if Medici chefs poisoned rivals via copper leaching, or just used better oregano. The ladle floats again, this time upside down, handle pointing at the window. Dawn brightens. The slit window casts a jail bar shadow across your chest. You unlatch it. Salted wind rushes in, puckering the stagnant puddles. A gull squawks. The ladle spins lazily, stirring phantom herbs into shadow broth. 17 sailors died in 1823, mistaking copper sulfate for curry powder. A maritime tragedy spiced with idiocy. Floorboards mutter underfoot, warped by steam and spilled lye. You kick a rusted can, label peeled to a single word. P-E-A-C-H-E-S. The sound echoes into the dumbwaiter shaft, a metallic shiver climbing toward dead rooms. Some scullery maid's midnight snack, or a rat king's wedding favor. The ladle clatters, suddenly inert. Your shadow stretches across the copper cluster, distorted face merging with warped pots. Thin light glints off the floating utensil, just mundane physics now. Condensation, maybe. Air currents. Still, you pocket a tarnished soup spoon, its bowl etched with half a heart. The other half's likely reforged into a musket ball. Drip, drip. The faucet's lament continues. You exhale breath, rippling the water's black mirror. Turn to leave. Behind you, the ladle dips once saluting, begging, mocking. It doesn't matter. Dawn's already yawning in the east, and a scullery's ghosts shrink from daylight. The door creaks shut, sealing the copper secrets, the ladle's waltz, the peach can's unanswered question. Moonlight slants through warped shutters, cross-hatching a desk buried under paper avalanches. You brush a script's edge. The corner dissolves into mouse-nibbled lace. 17th century playwrights wrote with iron gall ink its recipe, oak galls, rainwater, and a fistful of spite. A quill trembles upright, dipped in an inkpot of thickened night. Historians still debate whether Fletcher finished Cardenio or just doodled dicks in the margins. You lift a parchment sheet, faded stage directions whisper under your thumb. Enter ghost, coughing. Blotted wine stains mimic bloodstains. A cockroach skitters across Julius Caesar's death scene, adding unscripted pathos. Tudor theater troupes rehearsed in graveyards, cheaper than renting hall space. The quill jerks, scratching invisible words across a dust-blank page. Beneath the desk, a clay bowl crusted with rancid wax. Fringe scholars insist Romans used these lustral bowls to purify amphitheaters. Yours reeks of dead roses and stage fright. You pivot, a tower of folios sways like a drunk actor mid-soliloquy. The tragedy of Barnabas Coot capsizes, pages fanning open to Act IV. Alas, thy cheese doth curdle most obscenely, dry ink pots clatter, some still hold puddles of gluey black. Rest your palm on the desk, a splinter stings. Elizabethan ink stained fingers for weeks. Playwrights wore their smudges like guild tattoos. The quill lunges, jabbing at a moth-eaten cushion. A silver thimble rolls free, engraved for my wordsmith, eternally. Tudor mistresses gifted these to lovers, though smithing wasn't the primary activity. A cracked hourglass leaks sand onto a prompt book, time erasing entrances and exits. You flip to the last marked scene. Lady Winifred's revenge ends mid-harangue. A pressed violet crumbles between the sheets. Victorian understudies tucked them for luck. The quill trembles, spilling a single inky tear onto the blotter. Behind you, a wardrobe gapes, moth-ridden doublets slumped like executed kings. You peel a velvet cloak from its peg. A playbill flutters loose. Duke's Men, Novum. 9, 1598. All rolls doubled, including the bear. Groundlings paid a penny to heckle. Aristocrats paid 6 pence to sneeze into lace. The quill sweeps sideways, knocking a seal stamp into your palm. Press it to your wrist, leaves a faint, impolite comedy brand. Jacobean censors banned satire sharper than their quill nibs. A draft riffles the pages. A lurid chapbook falls open. The Ballad of Groping Gerald. Early fan fiction, or someone's wine-fueled confession. Mice bones glint in the shadow of an overturned chair. Final critics. You right the seat its cane, webbing coughs out dust. The quill stabs the air, pointing to a wall sconce. Twisted, a hidden compartment whispers open. Inside, a miniature stage, toy, actors frozen mid-plague scene. Their porcelain faces cracked from too many encores. Rain taps the roof, or is it rice thrown by phantom applause? You pocket a chipped, monogrammed cufflink, CM, glinting despite tarnish. Kit Marlowe's, probably not. The quill droops, its feather molting a barb. Blow on it, the veins tremble like a diva's last breath. Dawn pales the window. The hidden stage's curtains twitch, no puppeteer visible. You step back, floorboards groan their review. Tedious, but earnest. The quill collapses, its nib snapping against the desk. A breeze turns Barnabas Coote's pages, exposing an epilogue in mouse scrawl. Finis, Coronat opus. The work is crowned by its end. But whose work? Whose end? The inkpot's surface shivers, reflecting your face, and another's, a smudge of coal, a smirk. Turn. Nobody. Just papers settling into their graves. You exhale, the candle gutters. Shadows eat the quill, the stage, the unspoken applause. Exit, Steward, pursued by quiet. Your boots crunch straw, fossilized into cornflakes, each step louder than a horse's last supper. Moonlight stripes 12 empty stalls, their iron rings set too high for any earthly mare. Tudor grooms padded floors with lavender to mask piss. Now it's just dust and disappointment. A bridle sways, its shape molded for a muzzle that kicked the bucket centuries ago. You press a palm to the wall, splinters bite. Medieval stable boys rubbed vinegar on beams to deter rot. Spoiler. It didn't work. Faint hoofbeats echo, just your pulse thudding in your temples. Above the trough, a portrait of a stallion flakes into sepia confetti. Its glass eyes follow you, hungry for apples or vengeance. Dutch draft horses once hauled cannons for William of Orange, though yours hauled melodramas to Globe theater stages. A feed bag crumbles, oats petrified into wee stone tablets. Historians still argue whether elevated hayracks prevented colic or just looked fancy? The answer: yes. A saddle slumps like a beached tortoise, stitching devoured by silverfish. You flip the girth strap, a Roman hipposandal clatters free. Early horseshoes were leather socks, not waterproof. A draft whirls through slatted windows, carrying phantom whinnies and the stink of pretentious hay. 3 cobwebs crown a rusted curry comb. You swipe it, spiders evacuate like extras in a plague play. The far stall creaks, its door hinges screeching the opening chord of a demonic aria. Inside, iron shoes nailed over the threshold to deter witches or farriers. A mummified carrot rolls under your boot. Agricola's de re equestri recommended feeding steeds radishes for vigor. They preferred carrots. Smartasses. Your shadow stretches up the wall mane, rippling where your hair should be. The hoofbeats sync with your steps now, clockwork ghosts trotting behind. You pivot, a blacksmith's bill from 1612 flutters down, charged for reshuing the bay gelding post-joust incident. Translation: someone lost a bet. A rat skeleton poses mid-leap on a beam, death pirouette. Tudor rats carried more fleas than the globe's standing section. Dawn glints through a hay chute. You squint at a paint chip. Dappled gray, the exact shade Elizabeth I rode during her pissy virgin tour. The last stall hides a feed bin full of theater programs. Henry VIII, the musical folded after 2 nights. The bridle's bit clinks, a dry sob. You unhook it. Cold bronze hugs your palm like a dead man's handshake. Legend claims Warwick's white mare predicted executions by nodding. Historians still debate whether she had insights or just gas. A horseshoe magnet clings to your boot heel, charcoal remnants in the smithy pit whisper of midnight repairs. Farriers doubled as tooth pullers. Grim career pivot. The loft ladder snaps under your weight. You catch yourself on a beam splintered by stallion tantrums. Cobblestones below glint with spectral hoofprints. A groom's ledger lists 1 pound of honey for the chestnut's cough. Medieval NY Quill, your shadow herds you toward the exit. No apples, no encores, no easy exits. The doorway frames a lone oak, its branches pawing the air like geldings reared for war. You pocket the hipposandal, its leather sole crumbles. Dawn stains the horizon bridal red. Behind you, 12 stalls exhale. The echoes don't. The horizon cracks open, a yoke-slick smear bleeding across abandoned fields. You press the final ledger shut, its leather cover still warm from 12 hours of grudging confessions. Roman tax collectors tallied grain in wax tablets. Your ink bleeds like their long-dead grievances. A draft sneaks through cracked window panes, carrying the last sigh of a milkmaid's ghost. Your thumb brushes a wine stain on page 306, shaped like Henry VII's left testicle. Tudor bookkeepers hid doodles in marginalia, cross-eyed kings, bishops with donkey ears. The blotch winks at you. Histories full of scribes who got drunk on power, and cheap momsy, Dawn pokes the eastern wall, fingers of light dissecting dust, motes into floating citadels. You trace a column of numbers. Medieval accountants called them devil's teeth for how they nibbled sanity. 17 barrels of rye, 23 jars of honey. One sarcophagus borrowed during that chaotic Easter feast of 1542. A spider skitters over the word quarantined. Ottomans quarantined plague victims using vinegar-soaked ropes your cellar just has suspiciously lumpy wine. The spider pauses, judging your life choices. Historians still argue whether the Great Pansy Panic of 1637 was fungal or just flower bigotry. You side with the pansies. The quill snaps. A final drop of ink births a Rorschach blob. Looks like Cromwell riding a unicycle. Elizabethan librarians trimmed pens with pearl-handled knives. Yours dies via stress fracture. Fit for a steward who's 90% caffeine and regrets. You lean back, your chair creaks the opening bar of Greensleeves. The ledger's clasp clicks, shut, a sound sharper than Anne Boleyn's last punchline. Outside, crows debate ownership of a mummified fig. 17th century gardeners believed throwing pickles at storms saved crops. The crows seem skeptical. A moth dive bombs the candle, wings singed at the edges like burnt parchment. You blow it out. The wick smoke curls into a question mark. Dawn's fully here now, gold elbowing through grime-caked glass. Your shadow stretches thin, a stretched-out version of you already halfway to bed. The desk drawer sticks, warped wood groaning like a betrayed courtier. Inside, a shard of blue and white porcelain. Ming Dynasty smuggling operations hid drugs in ceramic layers. This piece is just a teacup's sad afterlife. You poke it, no opium, just regrets from a bad tea party. Floorboards whine underfoot, each step a gossip divulging secrets. You pass the borrowed sarcophagus, its hieroglyphs spelling out a shopping list for the afterlife. 10 loaves, 2 jugs of beer, 1 apology to the wife. 18th century Egyptologists thought cartouches held magic. Yours holds a mummy's snack preferences. The front door yawns, its hinge scream scaring off a family of eavesdropping mice. Tudor households employed mouse charmers with tin whistles. Modern solution: let the door handle it. Morning air slaps your face, chillier than Catherine of Aragon's divorce settlement. Your boot crushes a pinecone scent, erupting like a Renaissance potpourri bomb. Apothecaries stuffed plague masks with dried herbs, and probably regrets. The courtyard's lone oak waves, its branches sketching battle plans against the sunrise. You pause at the gate, the ledger's weight still gnawing your arm. In Byzantium, tax collectors wore lead-shod shoes to symbolize fiscal gravity. Your shoes are just muddy. A stray breeze tugs your collar, the manner exhaling one last plea. Stay, fix me, be haunted for free. The road lies ahead, a dirt ribbon fraying into fog. Some steward 5 centuries from now will curse your handwriting. Histories, a ledger 2 columns of choices and coffee stains. You step forward, dawn's yolk now a fried egg on the horizon. Behind you, the gate shrieks shut final as a guillotine. No fanfare, no royal trumpets, just a mouse sneezing in the east wing. Your shadow stretches longer than a papal bull, but it's yours. The wind steals your sigh, tucking it between pages of someone else's unsolved mystery. The horizon softens, a watercolor blurring night's sharp edges. You linger at the gate, its iron groan swallowed by the waking world. No more ledgers, no ink-stained riddles, just dewdrops trembling on spider silk, each one a tiny mirror holding the sky. Breathe in the air tastes of damp soil and forgotten time. Somewhere, a blackbird stitches dawn's quiet into song. Tudor laundresses swore lullabies could bleach sheets whiter. You hum half-remembered tunes, your breath frosting into ghostly lace. The path ahead bends, a gentle curve into mist. No lead-shod shoes, no Ottoman quarantines, just your footprints, dissolving like sugar in rain. Medieval poets compared wanderers to commas, pauses between history's grand sentences. You're content as a period tonight. A leaf brushes your sleeve, maple shaped like a king's trembling hand. Wars of the roses, pickled plagues, borrowed sarcophagi all fade to footnotes. Your shadow melts into the meadow, a puddle of borrowed light. The wind tugs your collar, gentler now. A shepherd's breeze, Elizabethan maidens called it. It carries no grievances, no testicular wine stains, just the sigh of thistles nodding to their own rhythm. Close your eyes. 5 centuries from now, dawn will still crack the same sky, yolk gold and patient. Let the fig-stealing crows keep their debates. Let the moth-winged saints rest in stained glass. Your chest loosens, a ledger's grip unclasped. Byzantine taxes, Tudor doodles, Cromwell's unicycle circus, all shelved in dust. The road unwinds, a ribbon of quiet. No coffee, no regrets, just the crunch of gravel beneath boots, a lullaby counted in steps. Sleep waits beyond the hill, a down quilt stitched with starlight. No pickles hurled at storms, no mummified apologies, just the earth turning its cheek to the sun. You let the fog claim the last comma, the last question. Breathe out. The gate fades behind you, a charcoal smudge in gold. Your shadow curls at your feet small and finally still.